Well, welcome along once again to the World Centre of Racing for more ranked racing competition here on RaceRoom Racing Experience. We've had some good fun with these races in the recent past, especially here at the Daytona International Raceway. That multi-class extravaganza we had 4 weeks ago with the Daytona 2.4 hour was absolutely breathtaking. This is, however, slightly different. You've got to say, do you like yourself some oval racing? Do you like yourself some GT3s? This is sim racing. We get to combine the two and see what we have to show. Races of just 30 minutes long, but we do get to do 3 of them. I think we are in for an absolute treat, and entertainment will be the bare minimum, I am sure. Myself, Lewis McGlade, Cameron Roger, to take you through the evening's entertainment. I don't even know where to begin with how mad this is, Cam. Daytona Oval Racing in a Camaro GT3. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, oval racing is, some of the best form of motorsport there is, and now we're going to do it in a car that's not really designed for this, so let's see how it goes. I think it's going to be, so much fun. And also 3 races as well, so what the drivers learn in the first race is then going to continue as we go through the evening as well, so it's just going to get better and better, and hopefully, it's a nice, entertaining evening of racing.
So you can see there, leaderboard qualifiers, 772 participants. Typically with competitions on RaceRoom, it's all about the gold servers and stuff, and getting the top tier drivers in from the ranked system. Whilst this is still a ranked race, we've done a bit of a pre-qualifier to get the drivers into this, just to see who's going to get into this broadcast race at the top. Of course, we've limited it down to 33 drivers. I think it was 36. Down to 33 drivers, though, from that 772. Everyone else is still racing, but we have our grid, and like you say, it is something vastly different to the normality. The car we're racing in is the Chevrolet Camaro GT3. Obviously, typically when we go racing around the 2.5 mile venue of Daytona Beach, it's always in more of a NASCAR style race. Big beefy cars. This is beefy, and I mean, it's American. It's proper American muscle. It's fitting in that sense, but the speeds and such we're doing, this is not something which is designed to do this, and that's why I love sim racing, that we can just do it.
Yeah, look at that though. 7.9 liters of American horsepower.
It's beefy.
It is huge. And yeah, it's going to be crazy. Obviously, the way that the slipstreaming and things are going to work is going to be quite interesting. As obviously this car isn't designed to go, flat out, this sort of speeds. And I think it's going to really be quite different and quite difficult for the driver to learn how they're going to be getting themselves up towards the front of the pack. There will be a mandatory pit stop in each race as well, so a bit of strategy involved. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, because I believe it's ×4 tyre wear and fuel wear that we have, so everything's going to happen just a little bit quicker for these drivers.
Yeah, it certainly is. ×4. That is quite a lot. Now, that does mean, as I say, it's going to force us to make a pit stop. Some people are expecting it to maybe even... I mean, it'll be closer to 2 based on where the fuel is. Now, I don't think we're going to see many people make 2 stops, certainly not as a chance of victory as we'll jump into qualifying. The reason being is that you should be able to save enough fuel in the pack. It's only the leader that really has to sort of push the boat out, basically by pushing the air out of the way for everyone else, and that's where sort of they will burn more fuel, so we're going to have to see some people dropping into the pack. Also, we will see green flag pit stops, by the way, because we don't have cautions, so it is just going to be straight into it, which I think is even more for the madness. Well, what we're watching here, by the way, is a private qualifying. We were going to do it as an open session, but then with how bump drafting is and such, and to be fair, let's make this a close. It is always single car qualifying all these days anyway, at Daytona anyway. Kind of makes sense to kind of continue that trend, but it is open setup.
Yeah, and that gives the that gives the driver some opportunities to have a bit of an advantage, because when you look at oval racing in general, you just see it as, flat out, straight line, bit of turning left, and you're all good. But actually, the setup can make it a lot easier to control the car in the middle of the corners, keep it down towards the apron, especially when you're in the pack racing and you can't really see cars around you too much. You really want a car that you can sort of move around and keep control of. If you've got a car that's either understeering or oversteering all over the place, it can make it a bit more difficult, even though it looks like the car is very stable.
practice pit entry there from Mike Barton, which, fair enough. Ilya Drovosekov, one of the drivers that was topping practice coming into this. Everyone knows how I love talking about practice sessions. It was in a little bit of a bump draft train with Klaus Fowler and Boris Slivic. The three of them were working together and were bump drafting at the front, and they actually did Drovosekov and Fowler, they set the exact same time. Don't remember what it was, but I do remember the gap was 0.000, the exact same time, because they were sat on each other crossing the line, and it was the same gap, obviously nothing at the start finish on both occasions. Just as a clarification, by the way, so what we're going to see at the start of the race, it is a rolling start, same as how they do it in this session, where they start on the backstretch. We'll see them start the rolling sequence on the automated system, rolling around from the backstretch. So that'll be new for some, certainly new for me. I normally watch standing start races on RaceRoom, so always something a bit exciting, but you can't do a standing. We were discussing this earlier in the week, Cam. You can't really do a standing start race, surely not in Daytona.
Oh yeah, definitely not here, especially as where the grid would be is sort of on the tri-oval section, so it's banked. So as soon as the car pulls away, the car's going to sort of want to slide down towards the apron as well. So be quite crazy. I did see in the 2021 Daytona 2.4 hours, there was a standing start, but obviously this year we did the rolling start, and it seemed to work pretty well there. So yeah, a few weeks later, coming back for some oval racing should be great to see. And obviously with the rolling start as well, they'll be up to speed a lot quicker, but you can still definitely get a bit of a jump on someone and get a bit of a run towards the front of the pack.
Indeed, we're focused on Mariusz Zabdir, who's starting up in 4th position at the moment, but with 12 minutes left of the session, there is still plenty of time for this grid to completely change in format. Of course, the gaps we're seeing here, obviously super tight, but this is what we expect around Daytona. I mean, it is completely flat out and just about smooth steering. When you classify it as a 10th separating the top 14 cars there, this is kind of the expectation. Even though we're on an open setup and people can adjust things, there are only a certain few things that kind of make a difference on a race like on a track like this when it comes to actual outright speed. Outside of that, it's just about kind of getting on the racetrack and being butter smooth.
Yeah, got to have the little fingertips on the wheel to try and keep control of the car, because as you say, you just got to keep it nice and smooth. Just keep the car sort of in a straight line. Any sort of wiggle, any sort of movement, that's just sideways movement. You want to be going in a dead straight line as fast as you can. And those last few thousandths are so difficult, which is actually quite interesting to see Rokas to be there, having quite a bit of an advantage, you know, relatively speaking, in oval terms. That 23 thousandths of a second is actually quite a lot.
Yes, this is where from my experience on oval racing, and from what I was told, as Amrad Dreha proves up inside the top 10, the Ukrainian driver, nicely inside that top 10 with a 7th position right now. Rokas to be across the line does improve on that lap time, so drags it out now to 400 of a second. Yeah, the most important lap isn't your timed lap, which sounds counter. It's the build-up to that. The build-up is critical. Now, obviously, they're starting on the back stretch. The first time that they do, you could almost cross off because it's kind of less relevant. What I would want to do is I would want to do the first timed lap that you do, running around the outside, building up the speed nicely, building up to the complete maximum, as we can see here from Pekka Pukalainen, running that high line on what is the first timed lap of this run, then brings it down through NASCAR 4 and then gets ready for the lap. It's all about the lines on the exit of the corners and on the entries as well, because when I first started doing Daytona racing and stuff, I always was like, follow the yellow line, just sit on the yellow line and follow it. Not actually true. It's not necessarily the fastest line. Not saying coming all the way out to the wall like Pukalainen is, but if you come out halfway, it just narrows the entry ever so slightly. If you're staying on the yellow line, narrows your entry down into the banked corners. If you're sat in the middle of the track, you then have a slightly smoother arc down into that banking.
Yeah, you got to make the corner as wide a radius as possible, as minimal steering input. And yeah, this is more of the extreme style, which is literally apexing the corners and out to the walls. But yeah, you don't want to get down below the apron. There's a lot of degrees of banking here at Daytona, and there's a bit of a jump almost as you come onto that apron. And interesting about the apron, we saw it to be all over the inside. We're going to see pick a line in here as well, coming to the line purple in that sector 3, but looks like 15th place, so still another 10th or so to find.
It's 31 degrees of banking here at Daytona, which is quite steep when you classify. I mean, if you get your protractor out, I don't know if anyone has protractors these days. We said even when I was in school. 31 degrees on that. That is quite an angle for a car to be jumping over as Slivic. Decent time there, still not enough to go and get up there, but good sectors towards the end of that run from the Croatian driver. Things obviously, like you say, I'm more impressed about how the top two are clear by quite a bit, and also, Rokas to be. We've seen plenty of race wins as Andre Renner struggles a little bit on pit entry. Rokas to be. We've seen plenty of times out here in the ranked racing stuff here on RaceRoom, but this is a complete unknown for everyone, and qualifying is very much one thing, and racing is very much a totally different thing in this style of racing.
Oh, definitely. With over 30 cars, you can certainly get through the pack here with the slipstream and obviously the strategy elements that come into it as well. So yeah, it's going to be a great show on the in the racing. But the qualifying is quite important though, because it also shows who's got a fast car and a fast setup, and whether they'll be able to stay towards the front. Because I would, I would assume if you're near the front, you're going to sort of stay there. And if you're a bit further back, maybe you're struggling with the setup. These people are a bit low down, they're maybe half a second off. Maybe that's just the car, and they are going to struggle to get forward purely because they won't be able to keep up with those guys.
Well, we'll keep our eye on Rokas to be, and here is the outlap coming in. So, the first time lap, typically we would say it is the outlap, although normally at Daytona you do your outlap, and then the first time lap you do high, and then the second time lap you do low. You can see just keeping it right up towards the wall. We don't know if we're going to see two lines form, by the way, through this race. We have absolutely no idea what to expect from this race, which kind of makes me a bit more excited by it.
I hadn't even thought of that actually, about that. Yet the ways of racing, is the slipstream going to work in that way? I mean, if you're looking, we are doing about 300 kilometers now, which is pretty much what the NASCAR boys do around here as well. So it's not too far off in that regard. It's just obviously how the aero side of things is going to work with this car. So we've got a huge rear wing on the back of it, causing a bit of drag, but I'm sure everyone's got as little downforce on the car as they can. As Rokas to be goes purple in that sector 1, again looking very quick on this next lap. Purple again in the second sector as well, so this could be a bit of an improvement once again. But yeah, the pack racing element is going to be quite difficult, because I'm sure they wouldn't have been able to practice with the amount of cars that we got today.
No, absolutely not. Counter, by the way, to how normal things are at Daytona, Rokas to be going way below the double yellow to cross the line. As much as those were purples coming across, but the gaps being so small, sometimes the timing does go a little bit wonky, shall we say, and that time it just panicking a little bit and saying that there were some really big purple sectors coming in from Rokas to be set basically the same kind of time, going towards the 48.405. That's how it is when gaps are so short. But what I am getting from this qualifying session, yes, of course, they're running around solo by themselves. We are seeing, and some of it could be connection, of course, we're seeing a fair amount of wobbling around. A lot of people kind of not being able to stick all the way on that yellow line all the way around, which is telling me the car's not necessarily, it's not difficult, right? I mean, it is flat out and just turning, right? That's not necessarily difficult. But when it can be a little bit slippery on the rear end, it's those kind of like minor corrections you have to make through the corner, which in qualifying by yourself, when you can afford to go up half a car width, etc. Whereas in the race, you can't, because the moment you go up half a car width, the car behind is thinking, I'm going for that.
And that is the important part, as well as the racecraft around here. You got to be very careful, I guess is the word. Look at, and that I don't think is the right line there for Pfeffer coming through the bus stop, sort of. Yeah, we're not quite at that layout today, as coming around the final corner now. But yeah, the racing element is going to be the important factor. Got to be looking in those mirrors. Can't be making those mistakes, because I don't believe we have cautions or anything like that to get you out of jail as such. So you got to keeping yourself on the track, because if you have a spin here and you lose half a lap, you're never going to be able to get that back.
I say this is why I love sim racing, because in real life, if we'd have heard, your certain endurance championship, rather than running GT3s in their race, what we're going to do is we're going to run a GT3 race before the Daytona 500. That's us taking on the Oval. Everyone would go, that is madness and just honestly ridiculous, and you should never do that. Whereas in sim racing, we're just like, go on, give it a go. I remember one of the most enjoyable races that I've done on ovals in the fairly recent past was driving Indy cars around Talladega, which was utterly terrifying, doing 400 kilometers an hour. But in sim racing, we can do these things, and why not?
Oh, absolutely, and that is obviously the benefit. You can literally do any car, any track, any rules. I mean, here we've got ×4 fuel, ×4 tires. You can't just suddenly do that in real life. You've got to do a whole, chemical reconstruction of the tires to make them do that. So it's well, exactly. So there's all these things that you can do in sim racing, which is great. And to be honest, it's what makes it good is events like this where you can literally just go crazy, do absolutely anything that you want, and just set the rules. It's quite a joy, and I'm sure there's some other more extreme car track combinations that we can probably try in the future as well.
Which I think definitely should. Mike Bartman, by the way, who is topping the pre-qualifying coming into this, only 30th, and again taking that very odd line on the backstretch. Obviously, just having a bit of fun, I guess. Maybe a little bit of frustrations. 30th place from Mike Bartman. Not ideal. The time in pre-qualifying, as an FYI, was a 48.816, which is considerably slower than almost everyone is running in this session. Mabbott being the only one, or the first of those that are below that time in 24th place. Everyone else is separated by a couple of tenths. Anyone with a major gap, though, towards the back, and to be fair, even for these that haven't set times, this is not the race to panic about that, because that slipstream is going to pull you along nicely.
Oh, absolutely. And don't forget, for the second and third races, it's the reverse top 10. So if you're sort of in the mid-pack and you get yourself into that top 10, you can sort of push your way to the front and gain a few positions, at least for the start of the race, and then see where you can go after that. So yeah, loads of things to play for, especially in the mid-pack. Just got to stay in the slipstream of the cars ahead and keeping yourself towards the front, making yourself available for any opportunities that come up, because there is going to be the odd collision here and there, and we'll have to find out how people can recover from that. But as we're getting to a minute and a half left in the session, the final laps are going to be taking place right now.
I think we're going to see a few big ones today. Will be the classic NASCAR terminology we'll be throwing out. Rokers to be, though, very much in control. We'll say, though, Armin Buffy getting up there in the session, under 200ths behind Rokers to be at the top of the session. Then it's Klaus Fowler, Mariusz Zabdir, Boris Slivic, Ilya Drovasekov. Those two, keep an eye on those two working together. I know they were in practice, which doesn't really mean anything, but still keep an eye on those two. Marcel Heck, who we're currently focused on in 7th position, and Annabelle Dos Santos with Ahmed Dreher. Cody Nikola Lakovsky sat in the final position inside the top 10. Pretty sure Lakovsky is the driver that's taken part in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, but forgive me, does improve up into the 9th position, well under a 10th, under that sort of pole time gap margin. But this is it. If you improve by 0.02 of a second, for most positions that you're in, you're probably going to improve at least one spot.
Which is pretty mad, because if you do that in terms of actual distance of the car, like centimeters that you're talking about as you get the results on screen. Couple of seconds left there, and Rokers to be looking fast as we are heading into the first race.
Yeah, very, very nice indeed. You can see Ilya Drovasekov, who is the highest ranked driver that is here today, if memory serves, sat there in the 6th position, proving that kind of experience on the platform kind of owes you very, very little in a race like this. Again, qualifying is one thing and racing is a very, very different thing. See the rest of the grid coming in. 29 cars setting a lap time there that is presently on your screen. Dirk Pfeiffer, Mike Bartman, we did catch, hadn't set a time, as well as a couple of others not setting times down the grid. So we'll have to wait and see how this is going to unfold. But honestly, Cam, no idea.
No idea what's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to be great, and we're about to find out in this first race. But don't forget, there is 3 races tonight. Mandatory pit stop in each of them as well. Excessive tyre wear has been added, so the tyres are going to go off. And I think the fuel strategy is going to be the important one as well, because some say you might not be able to do it on just one stop. Might need the second stop, which could be quite crucial in the closing minutes of each race.
Yeah, we might need a touch of assistance of the slipstreamers. Why? To be honest, starting towards the back of the pack, not necessarily a curse in a race like this. It gives you the time to avoid some of the wrecks, although without cautions and stuff, you do need to power your way through it. Here they are then, about to start as we come off of NASCAR for formation lap, of course. Basically, essentially skipped a rolling start ahead of us. Rokas to be and Armin Buffy on that front row of the grid. Klaus Fowler, Mariusz Zabdir, Boris Slivic and Ilya Drovasekov on the third row of the grid. Dos Santos and Lutkowski Heck and Dos Santos, then Lutkowski and Dreher. Well, let's get this underway and see how this evening is going to unfold. We have no idea. No, there's already a spinner in the background. I think that might have been Slivic just dropping it on the start. That was absolutely disastrous before we even really got racing. Rokas to be going to be leading us down, and it's Mariusz Zabdir on the high side down into turn 1, trying to just funnel his way into line, but just got an overlap. You've got to watch out. Finally, though, Armin Buffy gives room.
And let's see how the slipstream is coming down the backstretch for the first time. Some more contact in the background as well. And we're actually seeing Zabdir get the lead. Look at the slipstream though. The overspeed is pretty crazy as we come towards turn 3 for the first time. These guys need to be learning the spatial awareness of this car as well. Obviously, all the drivers not really knowing what's going on. But as we come out of the NASCAR 4 now, we're going to see to be getting that slipstream coming straight back. So I think this race is going to be a bit hectic.
But is Rokas to be going to play the long game here and also think fuel mileage, etc.? Let the lines settle themselves. Not sure how much oval experience there is within this group. Oval racing is a lot harder than people will think. I've just raced Daytona 3 times in the last 2 weeks. It is hard work to be battling your way around Daytona Beach. Zabdir, though, is leading, though, from Debee. Got a little bit of side-by-side. I think that might be Marcel Heck, 8th car in line, potentially just trying to grab the position off of Latkovsky and potentially get back into line. Certainly does so. Marcel Heck just ahead of Latkovsky and Florian Arend as well inside that top 10. Certainly not losing touch of that lead train. Zabdir, though, leading comfortable at the moment. But Rokas to be, I think, might play the long game behind. It's just whether that second line will form. Marcel Heck not waiting around too much longer, makes the move on Dos Santos.
And this is looking pretty good. These guys towards the back of this first pack need to make sure they're staying there, though. Obviously, dropping off isn't going to be too bad as Heck. They're trying to look down the inside of turn number 1. And he seems to slipstream. Oh, trying to do a bump drafting as well. But yeah, it looks like the slipstream's actually quite powerful for these cars to catch up and stay in line, as we've got a damaged car there on the inside. Try not to come back on the racing line. That wouldn't be too good. So yeah, I think the driver's going to have quite a lot of control of the throttle pedal here. There'll be a lot of guys lifting off a bit and just trying to stay in the slipstream. But the important point is the fuel mileage, as you say. Zabdir just going to be pulling these guys along, and look at all those cars behind him.
Yeah, got a bit of side-by-side. That is Latkovsky getting past Dos Santos as well. About 8th car, 9th car in line. Kramer and Bertram as well switching. The look backwards from Zabdir might fill a few drivers' eyes with fear, to be perfectly honest. It is scary when you have the chasing pack directly behind, but Rokas to be is leaving plenty of space. Did see that bump draft just a little bit, like I said, in the middle, or the entry rather, of turn 1 and 2. Let's be honest, bump drafting, absolutely fine. Do it on the backstretch. Do not do it in the tri-oval. Don't do it in the corners. It is not a wise call and will almost always end in disaster. Although how the contact model in this kind of deals with it, I wouldn't even know. I seem to handle it quite nicely there. Look at this, though. Close margins between these two as they're just trying to break away. See what Rokas to be does when it comes to bump drafting. Lines up with the Camaro of Zabdir. Little bit of a tap, nothing too major, just to try and push Zabdir a little bit further ahead of the pack.
Yeah, one thing we're seeing is the cars, they're sort of wiggling left, right, as a Bartman there gets a disqualified actually for speeding in the pit lane. So it looks like he's not going to be able to come back out. But you see the drivers are sort of wiggling. They're not staying in a dead straight line. It's very difficult to keep the exact line of the car ahead of you as we're seeing the huge train come out now onto the back straight. Ooh, a bit of side-by-side action now in the background. Is that Heck there trying to go a bit of side-by-side, coming around turn 3 on the outside? Is that going to work? Or is he actually then just going to be passed on the inside by Lakovsky?
Oh, goodness me. Tried coming up ahead of Florian Arend. Arend quickly lifting out of it there. I mean, I don't know whether they've got, crew chief or any form of spotter just sort of trying to assist them through all of this, but that was very, very close to a major crash from Marcel Heck, who was about to be freight trained.
Yeah, that is the lovely part of the slipstream as Lakovsky there goes down the inside there of Dreyer on the inside. Oh, bit of contact. We have a bit of side-by-side action now. Contact forming there through turn 2, but who is going to come out on top as we get the slipstream round the outside onto the back straight? We get 2 wide actions still going there, and it looks like a Hex actually just falling further back here, not being able to keep up with this and losing out into the slipstream train.
Yeah, just getting behind the purple, white and black KW car of Florian Kramer just a bit further. But like you say, losing a fair amount of position is Marcel Heck now nearly outside of the top 10 as we're looking back from Amrad Dreher to this train. You can see the train is 14 cars long. Balmania in that 15th spot is in the train behind. If this train continues to fight, it will allow them to close back in as long as Parvin does a bit of bump drafting. I'm not necessarily sure. So typically in oval racing, in this style of oval racing, if you have a line, you think of it as 3 cars long. Just the top 3 cars. The leader is getting pushed by the air of the car behind, which is also being pushed by the air of the car behind that. And they're all pushing each other, and that's how you gain the big speed. In this, I think it is just the slipstream, which is causing a lot of these checkups in the mid-pack.
Yeah, the cars, they're just able to drive past each other. It's at Kramer there, literally just driving round the outside of our end with the huge slipstream. Actually going to be able to get past another car. Zadakovsky, I think, is going to be able to get past. Literally just driving past these cars from the guys behind. So those cars he's overtaking, he's obviously having a bit of a lift off. Oh, someone's on the inside there. On
our end.
And managing to get back on.
Yeah, I think that was a Ren there, dropping down to the rear of this train. Might well actually bridge the gap between the 2 trains. There has been a bit of a gap forming within this one itself. You can see there about 11th spot as we look backwards from Ilya Dronosekov, just keeping his eye on that yellow line. Not sure how stringent they are on the ruling of the double yellow line. Of course, typically at Daytona, any move, or any super speedway rather, so that includes Talladega, that we don't have on the platform, so it's kind of a relevant point. A move below the yellow line is strictly prohibited, mostly for the fact that it is just crazy dangerous. But I mean, I'm sure we're going to see some of that on the run towards the checkered flag in about 23.5 minutes time. And of course, we are awaiting that first pit stop, which, like I say, if you're in this pack right now, lift that fuel, just save, just try and get through the race, playing the long game, and maybe delay that pit stop well into the second half. Although you kind of got to pit with the pack in this, although that's normal oval racing stuff. You've got to pit with the pack. I'm not sure that works in this, because I don't necessarily think that they're running much slower or faster. Oh, straight up into the barrier. That is Marcel Heck being sent up by Florian Kramer.
That was a big buff there, up into the wall, as you say, getting too close between these drivers, and it seems like, yeah, they're really going for it. And obviously, what you're saying with pitting with a pack, you often sort of work with your teammates and that sort of thing. I don't think there's too many sort of teammates working together here. Everyone's going to be trying to get past the cars ahead of them themselves, as we're getting some lapped traffic already is at Courtois towards the back of the pack. Unfortunately, going a lap down, getting a flashing of headlights as the leaders now go to the inside of turn 1.
Yeah, probably just a little bit of communication. Like it's in back marking in oval racing, it's always you do what you're doing, and we will drive around you. If you're going to stay low, stay on that yellow line all the way around, and we'll go high and go around you. Yeah, that is sometimes how it works. Not necessarily always the case, as Yankov get a little bit of assistance here to actually jump onto this train from the number 11 car, I feel, of Philip Bertram. As Zabdir continues to lead with Rokas to be behind. We are inside the pit window, though, in this middle portion of the race, and so they can now start to make their forced pit stop, although I think they might well wait surely at least for another 5 minutes. They've got to.
Yeah, if you want to do it on one stop, then yeah, you need to be getting to that sort of 15-minute marker to get there. But then, let's see how much they save in the slipstream, because obviously with the increase of fuel usage, that also is effectively an increase in fuel saving potential as well when you lift off. So these guys, especially when you're sort of a bit further back in the pack and you're getting 2-3 cars slipstream, you're really going to be able to save a lot, because you're going to be lifting out of it probably throughout the whole lap. You're barely going to be at full throttle.
I feel bad for Boris Livic, by the way, who's just jumped into chat and said that was an embarrassing start for me. I mean, when you're putting that much power down from a 7.9 litre V8, whether you're half at speed or not, I mean, that is tricky, because you're obviously going to keep your foot pinned, and the rears are just going to go, no thanks, I don't want any part of all of that power you're putting down. Feel bad. But there is still plenty of races to go this evening. There's still 2 more. Hopefully we'll see Slivic back out on the racetrack in the second race that will genuinely start in about 21 minutes time.
Oh yeah, it's certainly going to move quickly when we get to the second race, which is good to see. So we get a bit of a side-by-side battles here in the mid-pack, and let's see who's going to be coming on the inside of turn 3, because I think that yellow car's out. John Rose, trying to come down the inside of turn 3, is actually going to be able to hold it on the apron, just going to be able to lose out though, and unfortunately is going to be having to slot back in there. But now getting the run towards the start-finish line, going side-by-side once again, but a bit of bump drafting ahead is just keeping Parvan involved.
Now this is it, is if you have a confident pusher, you can make some very, very good lap time here. But to be honest, having a confident pusher is not easy. These cars are not going to be easy to push. It requires a lot of experience to know how to push a vehicle like this, which you can only do in practice, which, as you've said, a lot of the practice, or the leaderboard time, that would have been done solo. The idea of actually getting out there and racing with people is not really common in this kind of thing. You'd have to, they would have set up their own servers and such, and given it their own go themselves. Sure, they can do that. It is possible. It's just whether they have gone out of that and started messaging some of the other competitors and been like, right, let's try and work this out and how this is. Basically, what I'm saying is as much as we're learning this on the fly as to how this is going to unfold, the drivers are as well.
Oh, they're certainly learning it, and what do you do if you're sort of in the position here? We've got Buffy and also Zabdi at the front. They've sort of been left sort of at the front of their own little packs for quite a while now, and they're going to shortly be using quite a bit more fuel. You can see to be there right up the back bumper of Zabdi, going to be saving a lot of fuel, as well as Fuller is as well. So is that really going to hinder them? We'll have to find out in a few minutes' time when we get towards pit stop phase, because we're out now only sort of a couple of laps away from that halfway point in the race, and where they can potentially take their pit stop. They do have to take a mandatory at least 2 tyres, but I wonder if anyone is going to use all 4, then have a bit more grip at the end of the race.
Yeah, obviously this being 4 times on the tyre wear, the tyres should still theoretically be like too hard. It's not obviously a strenuous circuit on tyres. The rears might start giving up ever so slightly going through corners. Typically you'd think it's the front right, but when you're in the mid-pack, sometimes the right rear or even the left rear, they tend to just sort of lift up ever so slightly more, tend to overheat. Typically, so I don't know how they are on the GT3s though. I'm speaking more from a NASCAR point of terminology. But you might see the cars getting a little bit loose running through the corners. You can see this train's somewhat calmed down a little bit, and I think, as I say, people are learning their oval racing. I don't know how much experience they've all got on oval racing. It's Lepkowski with an enormous run courtesy of the checkup from the mid-pack, but as soon as you pull out into clear air, that train's obviously going to go faster. Most important thing to do when you're driving around an oval like this, when you're trying to stay in line. You said about the wobbles off the bottom, a little bit of side-by-side as Florian Kramer's trying to pick up the spot on Lepkowski, which Lepkowski is going to allow, in air quotes, but watch the double yellow, keep your eyes on that double yellow line, not the car ahead. If you watch the car ahead, that's where you wobble with them. Watch the yellow line and drive on that.
Easier said than done, as always.
Said.
But yeah, it's you've seen a couple of this racing style is quite interesting. You've seen a couple of guys really being able to sort of get past and then just slipstream and slowly sort of glide around the car in front of them. It seems like you're able to sort of do that and pick off one driver at a time, but this front pack is really starting to close up now. That gap between DB and Buffy has really come down over the last couple of laps, and Zaptier, I mean, he doesn't really have much choice, to be honest, but he's just got to sort of work out what he wants to do here. He's being pushed along the right way to go. We'll soon find out, but to be looking pretty comfortable there in that second place.
Zaptier's got two choices: run first or run ninth. Those are your choices, because that's it. This train has picked off the rest of the contingent in this grouping, and Lutkovsky at the rear end now of this train, as Bertram also makes that pass for 8th spot. Those are your choices: run first or run ninth. Because if he tries to pull out to relinquish the lead from DB, he's dropping all the way back down to 9th. This train will entirely pass him. Look at the side-by-side towards the rear end of it, as Lutkovsky and Bertram are super close as we look backwards from Klaus Fowler towards Ilya Jovasekov. It really, I mean, it doesn't really surprise me. I was expecting this, but the stack-ups are enormous. We saw that one when we were on board with Lutkovsky coming down into the tri-oval. The stack-ups from the pack are absolutely huge.
Yeah, it's keeping these guys. Oh, is that to be actually moving to the outside of turn number 3? Is he going to be going for it finally and going for a bit of a swapperoo? And it looks like, yeah, on the leaderboard, he has gone around the outside. We're getting a bit of a four-way bump drive just ahead. All cars coming onto the apron. Are they going to be able to come back on safely? Yes, they are. But a lot of guys maybe coming into the pit lane as this is getting a bit crazy. 15 minutes to go. And, oh, who's that? Drovasekov is staying out.
Same, I think, is Rokas to be is in pit lane, so they all did decide to come in there at the pretty much bang on the halfway point. Zaptier having a monster issue though.
Run out of fuel maybe.
Potentially, it did look like the car was choking off of 4. And having been sat at the front of this field, kind of makes sense that might have been a possibility. Ilya Drovasekov, though, continuing on for at least one extra lap over that pack. Whether this will work out, typically in say in standard NASCAR racing, I'd be like, death sentence. Staying out is an absolute death sentence, and this is not going to go well for Drovasekov. In this though, I don't really know. You've got a completely clear entry to pit lane with no one else, as Renner receives a drive-through penalty for speed. We're going to see a few of those this afternoon. Drovasekov though, with that clear entry down to pit lane and clear exit as well, as Mac Davidson also says. So we're going to get a few. Bizarre.
Well, we're going to find out what is the best option, as it seems like that Lutkovsky has maybe only taken 2 tyres, saved time that way. I don't know, but he's out ahead of everyone else, and the guys behind are going to have a long way to catch up. That's quite a few seconds, and Rokas to be there coming out of the pit lane. He's also side by side with Fuller there as well. A bit of side by side action on pit exit. And let's see how quickly they get up to speed. Yeah,
they need to get themselves back into line almost straight away, because if you're going to remain side by side, you're just going to be costing yourself time. Gomizia with a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. There's the 3rd one. But yeah, what a strategy call from potentially Lutkovsky and potentially Fowler as well. Fowler's the one that's directly ahead of Rokas. Never mind. 3 seconds though was the gap. We'll have to wait and see how it is as we cross the line. It certainly looked like it was going to be more than 3 seconds. But what does Drovasekov do over on their pit stop? Is there going to be 2 tyres? Is it going to be 4? Are you coming out with the Fowler, DeBee, Dreher, Kramer sort of group? A bit more than just a group right now, isn't it?
Yeah, and also with this pit stop, everyone's sort of opened out a bit and it's really spread those gaps. So quite a lot of difference in the pit times, which is an interesting point to see. As we're getting, look, they just go right around the outside of him. As that just shows you how coming out of the pit lane can be quite difficult on your own, because now he's lost the slipstream and it's going to be quite difficult to get that back. But yeah, the gaps, they've really opened out, and the drivers need to work out what they're going to do.
And what happened to Lutkovsky? I wonder if maybe fuel wasn't taken or something in that vein. It did seem like it was a bizarrely shorter pit stop, but I think Lutkovsky has dropped off of the lead train, maybe coming back into the pit lane, now down in 18th position. So this returns to being the battle for the race lead then, and Rokas to be continues on in that position that he sat in for pretty much the entire race. 2nd place, but watch out for Drovasekov, watch out for Dreher directly behind as well.
It may not be a bad strategy for the B, because the thing is, it's very consistent. He's just sitting exactly behind the leading car. He's going to be saving a bit of fuel, and he doesn't have to sort of stress, because he knows he's just sitting there. He's just going to wait for the perfect opportunity to try and get back past. And let's see, Drovosekov here. Is he actually gaining a bit on the slipstream? So I think he might be in the slipstream now, which is good, because that's going to pull them right back together. And I think in about half a lap's time, he's going to be on the back of the B, and he's going to be fighting, which is worked out pretty well for him, gaining a couple of positions.
But with the slipstream in this train, it might actually allow him to potentially slingshot as Rokas to be, potentially trying to go around the outside, but there was no gap there. What does Drovosekov do? Goes below the double yellow to try and pick up the spot. Sets potentially the fastest lap of the race with how fast he was catching this group. Had to go below the double yellow to try and get past Rokas to be. Trying to grab the race lead as well on the inside of Klaus Fowler. Certainly is going to do so, and Rokas to be still is second somehow.
After all this, and then Fowler has just gone to the back of the pack. So from first to fourth, that just shows you how big the overspeed can be with this slipstream. And Rokas to be once again comes back in, sits in that second place, and is just waiting for the opportunity. And it seems that that's just going to be where he's sitting at the moment. He's been P2 pretty much the whole race so far, as Dre is now getting just behind them as well. Is he going to be able to get a bit of a run here?
But how many laps do you need to lead to win a race?
None.
One.
Well, one,
None?
technically, yeah. Well, man,
None?
you need to lead it.
Well,
just
actually, no,
at the end of
technically you do need to lead none, because if someone gets DQ'd in front of you, then yeah, you might actually get the race win that way, but I don't think anyone's
but
going
I
to
mean,
DQ.
you just need to be ahead in the last centimetre, and then that is it. And yeah, I mean, just seeing the real 500, last week, that is just showing you how close it can get at the line as well. As we've got a back mark there, letting these drivers pass, and it certainly has worked out into this four-way battle for the lead, as it seems that that P5 of Kramer has lost 6 seconds. That's quite a lot of time with just one pit stop.
Always the deciding factor in oval racing, if it's going to go green, always the deciding factor is the green flag pit stop. It is tremendously difficult. You think that you're carrying an enormous amount of speed, not far off in these, not far off 200 miles an hour, about 300k that they're running around this circuit. Bringing that down is tricky, normally in a race car anyway. But when you think that these brakes have not been used basically throughout the entire race, they are cold, and so it's so easy to snatch a brake coming down what is also a really, really bumpy pit lane entry. So we've got 4 for the race lead. There is a 5th car in shot. I believe that is Florian Arendt, who's sat in 19th position, trying to gain a few spots on this, on their positions, because to be fair, if you can link up with the lead group, it might help you gain a couple later on in the race.
Oh, my D, you can just get pulled along and just sit behind them, waiting to see what the leader's going to do when they get past some cars. And unfortunately, as I said, the battles just behind this top 4 have opened up a bit. But that battle for that 10th place is quite important, because that is the reverse pole position coming into that second race as well. So those drivers a bit lower down, still very important as we get to the second and third race of the evening. So let's see how this one works out. Just over 8 minutes to go. Rokas to be sitting there pushing Drovosekov a little bit further down the road. So he's looking pretty good at the moment. But we saw Zabdir run out of fuel. I wonder if we're going to see anyone run out of fuel again as we come towards the line.
I think this is ever so slightly shorter though, because I think when they left pit lane it was like 14.5 to 14 minutes, particularly with Drovosekov. Drovosekov definitely left because obviously he went out for that extra lap. By the way, I'll correct myself. I believe that car behind the lead train isn't Florian Arendt, it's Ricard Gomizia. In the number 10 car is this train. Well, they might not be battling for the race lead, but they are going to continue battling in about as hard as they can. It's Mikhail Lapinik on the outside of Florian Kramer, drops it back in line. Buffy at the front, Huber and Shimmy directly behind in this sort of group. They are 11 seconds clear of Daniel Parvin. So this is definitely the group, well, we say that. Realistically, it's the group that's going to finish and be battling it out for the top 5. And then we've got our top 4 that are a further 9.5 seconds down the road that look to be our grouping that's going to battle for the race lead. I think that's, that's how things seem at the moment. But from that top 4, just always remember that it only takes one person going for an interesting move, shall we say. Like how Drovosekov went for it going through the tri-oval. Take something like that, a crash between the four of them, and suddenly the entire group is back into it.
Where we also saw was it Heck earlier getting pushed up just at this point on the track in the back straight. I think that's his tyre marks on the wall as well. So yeah, getting very close between some of these drivers, but fortunately they've actually been keeping it fairly clean. I say that as we're getting a bit someone just on the apron there on the inside of turn number 3. I guess there's some sort of back markers that they're trying to get past as well. He's getting very tight between some of these cars as we're now getting Rokas to be to the outside. This is going to be the side-by-side action over the line just over 6 minutes ago. A bit of contact, and these two trying, almost slowing each other down at this point of the track as well. But to be trying to go all the way around the outside, but I don't think that's going to happen. And he's actually been blocked off now by Dre, and he's going to lose some positions.
Yeah, no longer in second place, but it wasn't a position that he wanted. Rokas to be drops down to what is now in third spot. But there are so many more cars than the 4 that are battling for the race lead. There is a lot going on within this group's trying to pick up. I think that might be Lutkovsky. It's very hard to work out when they're in this kind of grouping. Either way, Drovosekov is leading from Dreher. Rokas to be 4th car in line, actually in... Oh, sorry, I think it might be the 5th car in line. These two... Oh, see, I'm very confused with how things are playing out in this.
Yeah, one of those, the black 16 cars, that one of them, a bit of contact once again with the B coming through the tri-oval. One of those black cars is a back marker, and it's really sort of opening up this battle and potentially making it so DeB can't actually get back. It might be a Courtois maybe as well. One of two. Is getting involved here, and this could really shake up the battle, although we know the slipstream is just going to pull them straight back, and to be actually getting a bit of a run on the outside now. Is he going to be able to use the car, the backmark car ahead of him to go all the way around the outside and take the race lead? He's getting a huge slipstream, and I think he might just be able to pull this off by the time we get into turn 4.
Yeah, getting a little bit of assistance. That is Lutkovsky. That is Cody Nikola Lutkovsky just ahead of Rokas DeB that pushes DeB into the front of this race. And now DeB's like, yeah, okay, mate, you've done your work. Now see you, son. Oh, a little bit of contact on the rear end going through the tri-oval from Ilya Drovosekov. Just trying to give that push at absolutely the wrong spot. On the inside line, it is DeB, Drovosekov, and then Drehart and Fowler all on the inside line as Lutkovsky got his lap back briefly and then is like, yep, see you, mate. Drop to the rear end of this grouping, if you would please. Next car coming out, that is Renner, who's just holding the yellow line. There's Drovosekov, a little bit side-by-side again, pushing him as they're trying to decide which way they're going to go around this back marker. What is Renner going to do? Oh, they're straight up into the barrier. Drovosekov pushing Rokas DeB up there as Rokas DeB was trying to drop Drovosekov into the back marker.
Oh, this is getting very tense now. They need to be careful, but it's great racing between all these guys as they know they've only got a few laps left to go in this first of 3 races. They're battling it out for the race victory, so they're going to be going for every single centimetre that they can, and the contact is continuing. As it's interesting to see Lutkovsky also fighting so much with these cars that is obviously a lap down on as well, but DeB needs to find a way back past. They've just pulled away a bit from Drehart in the background, but with the slipstream I think they're going to be coming back on, and DeB looks like he's going to be sitting there for quite a while to calm it down. Otherwise, things will boil over and they'll have a crash before they even get towards the end.
I don't know what the instant limit is for this race, but I'm hoping it's quite high for the sake of some of these drivers by how much they are bumping each other constantly. No one cares about their reputation, essentially their safety rate, how safe they are on the racetrack. No one cares about that at the moment. They are going out for the win. And I think even Lutkovsky is just like, well, I mean, do you know what? I'm going to battle with you anyway and have a bit of fun. Why not? 2.5 minutes left to go, expecting us to have maybe 4 laps left in this race. So still plenty of time for us to decide our victor, but it certainly does seem like it's going to be between those 4. But remember how I said it was 9 seconds that Drovosekov, DeB, Dreher and Fowler had over Buffy in that 5th spot. It's now down to 6 already.
Yeah, it's the way the oval racing works is very interesting with how the gaps and the positions change so frequently. Things can stay consistent for so long, and then before you know it, the gaps are really opening out as we're only getting to 2 minutes left now. And this could be actually quite an interesting one for when we're going to get the checkered flag. We'll see what time it is when they get to the line once again, as we're getting this battle for P11. Unfortunately, obviously not in P10, which is the important position at the moment. So let's see how they do. Just a couple of laps to go. Parvan really trying to get the slipstream to take this position.
It hadn't even crossed my mind how important this position was. 'Cause obviously the reverse grid pole from that top 10, you're absolutely right, had not crossed my mind. This race has been so crazy. Parvan though grabs it. Balmania now trying to get to the outside, decides against it, drops back in line just ahead of Bertram as Drovosekov in that lead group now drops behind Klaus Fowler for that. Oh, there's a contact on the rear end from Parvan. See you, son.
Oh, and he's actually, look at how much runoff there is in Daytona, but he's still going to make it to the inside wall. So 1 minute 17 to go. So I think that is going to be, just 2 laps to go. So this is already the penultimate lap. Deb's got a bit of a gap, and it looks like there's sort of some positions changing just behind him as Drovosekov has now got into that second position, and the gaps are starting to open up just a little bit. So it looks like Deb might actually be one of the fastest cars, really able to get those gaps ahead as we're now into the final minute of the race. Drovosekov, though, is going to have a huge run here coming out of turn 4.
It was the 5th car in line that is Dreher. It is Lutkovsky that's still within this train as they're all battling this out. As we come off of NASCAR 4, it would be the white flag in the air, the final lap of this race, and who is going to come out on top? Rokas Deb at the head of this field, but it's all about timing that run, really holding it on that yellow line is Deb. Drovosekov with decisions to make, makes it to the outside of one, doesn't have the speed to make that one work, drops back in line, might well just build up a decent gap and use that slipstream to punch into down into 3.
Yeah, let's see how this works out. Drovosekov getting the... When is he going to go? Is he going to go the outside of turn number 3 towards the very final couple of corners of the race? And is he going to be able to actually get the slipstream there? I think he's sort of lost his momentum. He's going to have to pull back in, as this is going to be quite a bit of a run to the line. Some back markers getting involved as well. Who is going to get the final push?
Yeah, that was a little bit dicey from the back marker. Might open the door for Fowler to get past on Drovosekov. Below the yellow line they go. Rokas Deb up towards the line as he's going to take the first victory here at Daytona. Drovosekov did not have it in him, just not enough push on the front end of his red Camaro. Fowler in third, Dreher in 4th position as the train for 5th place comes across the line. That battle for the all-important top 10. Let's watch them across the line as Oriol Balmania is going to cross the line for that 10th spot and will be reversed up onto pole position with Lapanik alongside on that front row of the grid. Crazy start, but Rokas Deb, for my money, played his cards so well through that race. 2nd place for most of it, just saving fuel, saving time, and waiting for the right moment to pounce.
Absolutely. He, judged it to perfection, and he definitely had a bit of a speed advantage there at the end, because once he got in the lead, he was also able to get those extra sort of couple of tenths in the bag to be able to hold on to it as well. So really good race management from him, and able to work out that pit stop as well. A lot of drivers lost time at that pit stop, so when we get into this second race, I wonder if some drivers are going to be learning from that. But as you see, Shimmy there in P8 getting the fastest lap. We didn't really talk about him all race, but just showing you how close these lap times are, and he will be starting from 3rd place, so maybe he's going to be one to watch as we get into this second race in just a few seconds. Yeah, that top 10 going to go for a bit of a spin. Rokas Deb and Drovosekov will start from 9th and 10th. Fowler, Dreher, Buffy, Kramer, Huber, Shimmy, Lapanik and Balmania will switch their way around the rest of the grid coming through there as our finishers. Lutkovsky did get involved with that top lot, but you can see the retirements down. Zetek, Jan Courtois never really got into the race, finished 5 laps down. Slivic, obviously what could have been from that race start, realistically speaking, could have been potentially a little bit more, just making that mistake, that critical error on the race start, and getting a DQ in the form of Bartman. Zabdir as well with the retirement, we believe for running out of fuel. 30 minutes of just, honestly, drama. And then we got 2 more of these to go as well. So this is going to be crazy. But for Deb, now that he's going to be starting a bit further back in that 10th place, is he going to be able to work his way up towards the front? Because he didn't really have to do that so far. He was always in quite a nice position at the front. So hopefully he can load in into this second race and have a bit of fun trying to get past the 9 cars ahead of him.
So it did seem as though, with a little bit of slipstream ahead and such, they were very much able to get to the halfway point in the race for the all-important pit stop, that one pit stop, with the exception of whoever was at the front of the train, of course, being Zabdir in that race. Are there going to be a bit of concerns for the leader in this race, you think?
Oh, definitely. But Zabdir was at the front for the whole of that first stint, remember? So I think maybe we'll see them try and swap around a little bit to avoid that. That is if they know why Zabdir actually ended up DNFing from the race. But we're about to find out as we come to the second rolling start. Hopefully no one goes for a bit of a spin this time.
Indeed. It will be Balmania on the front row, as we said. Lapinic alongside, then Shimmy, then Huber on the second row of the grid. Ignore Montoro being up towards the front. Kramer and Buffy behind in that. So see if we get this start nicely underway here for the second race in our Daytona Oval race on the ranked side of RaceRoom. Control will be given to them as they cross the line, and the race will be back underway. Really important for them to get back in line straight away from the start of this race, but a bit of a poor start there from Bolmania. Lapinic straight up to the race lead, and look at the train. Seagerson on the high side must have missed a gear or something.
Yeah, that was a horrific start, to be honest. He's losing so many positions as we're already getting Shimmy there coming to the outside of turn number 2 to take the race lead by a car length as well, as Huber's coming in behind. This getting very close again. All the drivers getting back up into this pack racing form of things as Kramer there getting past into third place. Lapinic dropping down 3 positions already.
Yeah, Rokers to B lost 1 position on the race start, down to 11th, gains it back on Manuel, but this is just going to be constant side by side as people try and figure their way through at the moment. It is Shimmy, Huber, Kramer, the Germans running 1, 2 and 3. Dreher directly behind, all up into the barrier though, as they're watching the car ahead rather than what they're doing themselves. Buffy though to the low side, just trying to find a way past, but it's more so in defence of Lapinic, who's coming back round to grab 5th place just in the background. Shimmy though is leading, and we know this car is fast. It did set the fastest lap, of course, in slipstream in the previous race. Look at that. I think that might have been Rokers to B trying to make it side by side with Ilya Drovosekov, who's dropping back on the high side on the exit of 2.
And it looks like the pack's staying a lot closer together than it did in that first race as well, with drivers getting a bit more used to the race start, as we can see Lapinic on screen in that 6th place. So losing some positions, but it's seemingly quite more simple to get it back. And Shimmy now at the front. Is he going to be burning too much fuel? Let's see how long he stays there, with Huber just behind him, getting the bit of the bump draft going as we get towards the tri-oval section. And it looks like they've just calmed down a little bit as they got themselves into position, but we're going to see what we saw in the first race, where you're a little bit further back. You can sort of slipstream and just glide past one car at a time, working your way up the train.
Yeah, you've got to hope, if you're going to make those slipstream passes, your 5th car in line, you've got to hope that by the time that you've got past that car ahead, that there is a gap there for you to dive down into. If you're going to pass them one at a time, that's how you need to do it. Focused on the second train, Lapinic at the head of it, Fowler, Bolmania, Rokers to B, Bertram, Lukovsky as well, all in this training. We know that Lukovsky's got a fast car himself, as looking to the outside, Bolmania, but it's going to open the door for Rokers to B to get through. Another issue from Bolmania straight up into the barrier, as we'll drop down into 11th position. Doesn't look like there's going to be a second consecutive reverse grid if this is going to be the case, but of course we know the pit stop plays its form. Drovosekov, by the way, 25th position, clearly the ticket for the holiday wasn't a good one, as drops right to the back of the field.
Yeah, that's a shame, but remember there's a race after this one as well, so trying to get yourself back towards that 10th place is the all-important number once again, as we see in the 3 green number 3 cars coming around turn number 2. And this is Zabdir, who unfortunately ran out of fuel, but he's back in the race, back trying to get up some positions, 24th at the moment, and trying to get past Mabet's just in front of him, but not getting past just yet, having to fall back in line.
Well, look at that view directly ahead. By the way, it would have been great if they were going through turn 3 there. 3 number 3s in turn 3. It would have been ideal as we ride on board with Anibal dos Santos. That train ahead though, like if you are Zabdir, if you're Mabet at the moment, you're sat there on the rear end of Zetek. Push. Just try and grab that train. You're battling over 20 odd spot. Doesn't really matter too much at this point in the race. try and save yourself, try and play the long game, try and get back involved in that train. Once again, though, but this is counter to how it was in the previous race, and certainly not with what we'd expect of the faster cars. The top 5 have massively broken away from that train behind. Lapinick in 6th spot, clearly not with the fastest car known to mankind. There's Shimmy holding our race lead at the moment, but this group must be working brilliantly together.
Oh yeah, they definitely are. Lapinick lost some places at the beginning and has just continued to lose those few tenths here and there, and now being over 2 seconds behind, so be out of the major slipstream as well. And to be, if he wants to get up to that front pack, he's got a lot of work to do. He's up to 7th place, but needs to try and push Lapinick or something along those lines, as we're getting very wiggly through turn number 2. But yeah, he needs to try and do something here with Lapinick to bridge that gap, because that is starting to form as they're getting very crazy just behind him.
Yeah, it's tight stuff indeed, and like you say, the harder this train fights, the worse. Dreher, by the way, gets to 2nd in that lead train, just trying to grab the positions on Huber as they'll run side by side just up at the head of the field. I think they might have a back mark up there as well, I'm not 100% sure with them already. It would be Montoro if there was one, as this group continues to just close down. I think they're getting so desperate in trying to push Lapinick that maybe Lapinick just doesn't have the speed. Don't want to be kind of super rude about it, but I don't think maybe he's not got the setup to actually sit out there in clean air, and might need someone else like the form of Rokas to be, who we know is fast, to take over the lead of this group. But the B doesn't really want it. Oh, there is someone. That was from the lead group. That was Ahmed Buffy. Just dropped down and caused an enormous crash.
That was huge, getting involved. Obviously, the cars 4-5 back in this train would have not seen that coming at all. Such a shame for those guys involved in that, and they are going to be having some difficulties getting back in this race, because there's going to be a lot of damage with those cars as you come back to the front with Shimmy still leading the way. Is he going to be running into the situation we saw in the first race? Is he going to be struggling with the fuel? We'll only find out in time.
Yeah, that was a pretty... I mean, that was a crazy angle to be seeing it from, I will say, because that car just appeared out of nowhere. I'm assuming they got into the wall on the high side as everyone slaps into the apron and then back off of it. Shimmy leading from Dreher, from Kramer, and from Huber. It was just... honestly madness. Buffy from this group into the wall and then sticking to it, and then it is hard to get off the wall when you're at that speed. It just constantly keeps pulling you into it. Here though comes a bit of a run though from Heck, who was pretty fast in the previous races. Opened the door for Rokas to grab 2nd in this group still, as he was running the 2nd car in line. But Lapinick's pace just is not there.
Look how many car lengths he's lost just in turn 3 and 4 there. He definitely doesn't have the pace. I don't know if maybe he's loaded the wrong setup or something like that, but this race he hasn't clearly got that speed, and this is good now for to be. He's up now into 6th place, gaining another position with the crash earlier, and now has got a decently fast guy ahead of him, we think, to try and pull him along, but that gap is still around 2 seconds or so, but they're certainly closing in. But again, just look at this pack behind. There's so many cars staying involved in this second race of the evening, and the pit stops are going to be pretty crazy when we get to them in a few minutes as well.
But a couple of pushes at the absolute right time from Rokas will push this train onto, because they're still getting a little bit of slipstream. You can see the gap there, 1.5 seconds. They're still getting the slipstream, just a little bit, just a nice wisp of it from that lead group. If they have a couple of stack ups as well, that gap will be even smaller, and that's why timing is everything in this. They could be a part of that group by the time we head into the pit lane sequence. 1.4 seconds now is the gap between Heck and Huber. This group is certainly not out of it. Lapinick though dropping down to 10th spot and creating a 1.2 second gap back from Lukowski, showing that maybe that car just is not very quick.
Yeah, maybe not, and it's a bit of a shame because I don't remember him being struggling so much in that first race. But let's see. Yeah, let's just see how it goes. I don't know. It must be maybe some of the setup, because when you're just flat out for so long, obviously if the car's fast, then it's fast. But if the car's slow, you can't go any quicker because you're already at full throttle.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends on gear ratios and such. So I'm not necessarily sure that's the problem. Might have been potentially even too much cooling, too much downforce, too much rear wing, too much drag, basically, that's slowing that car down, not making it slippery enough. I wonder if the same issue went the way of Drovosekov, who's in 20th position behind DeSantos, as we are in the pit window, so they can come into pit now, but we know that for sure If they pit at this point, they will not make it to the end of the race, and we do expect the first pit stops to be halfway through. What's happened? Whoa, what has happened to Dreher? That might have been a wheel failure, but that was a very solid see-ya moment.
I'm glad we didn't see the impact in the wall, because that looked like he wasn't slowing down. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to loop or anything like that. But yeah, Dreher there going straight into the wall at pretty much full speed. I think, yeah, that was some sort of wheel failure. Seeing him, getting contact. Oh, they managed to be able to keep hold of it, wiggling left and right, 3-4 wide almost, as he come through the tri-oval. Who's going to go out top on the inside of this pack? It's hard to say who it is, but I think it was Zeta getting up some positions.
It might have been Zetek, yeah. I think it was indeed, as it's Lapinic that's at the head of this group. This is honestly complete madness in this group, because this is quite a long train rolling all the way back down even to 22nd spot, much larger than our lead group within this, but they're all kind of a bit all over the place. As Zetek goes a little bit too high, opens a door for Parvin to come through, as once again little bits of contact, the little taps here. Oh, as there's Zabdir that went too low and now comes back up into Mabbott, pushes Mabbott up into Zetek.
This is getting very feisty between these guys. They're really getting the overspeed. Someone's on the apron on the inside there. Hopefully they come back on nicely, which they have done. I think that was Lapinic just losing some more positions potentially, as we're getting side by side once again coming through turn 3. That shot coming out onto the back straight just looks crazy. We're getting almost 3 wide for the lead of this battle. It's actually Lapinic and Zabdir now getting through. Zabdir, he was all the way down in like 20-something position.
Start last.
Look at this improvement from him. Certainly got a fast car, and now he's got a Mabet behind him. Can they push each other further along and try and catch up? There's only sort of about 3 seconds or so ahead. That could be done in the pit stop.
I mean, to be fair, yeah, it's a little bit too far outside the line for slipstream. By the way, we did catch the group. Look at that gap. Saying it was 1.3 seconds, wasn't it? 1.4 seconds between our lead group and that second group. Well, now that lead group is 8 cars long, and this group is catching quite quickly. You can see it's already come down 0.4 of a second. It was 3 seconds. It is already down to 2.6. It's just dropping below the line there. That'll be Daniel Parvin, that was the 4th car in this line, just below the double yellow. Is there someone off in the background? I'll get confirmation, by the way, that Amrad Dreher, that was a game crash on their front. It did look like it was a technical problem. Very, very unfortunate, as there was a car, I think that might have been John Rose, that was stationary off of T4 as well.
As we got Kramer now coming to the front of the pack with Shimmy and Heck going side by side through the tri-oval section. And it looks like it's going to be a Shimmy there, just getting that second place. Heck dropping back and actually getting bumped out of the way. So he's going to be losing another place. Huber trying to get past now, as well as we're getting Rokas to be just behind these guys. So we said he was having to bridge the gap. He has done so, and look how close. 3 wide coming towards turn number 3. Heck on the inside. Is he going to be able to make it down to the lead, or is Huber going to be able to go around all the way around the outside of these guys? And no, he's going to have to actually bump the wall a little bit there as Kramer comes back in.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Huber and that lot were doing. I think they're trying to get back into line to save a little bit of fuel, as Heck does take the lead by making it 3 wide and drop below the double yellow. A little bit crazy within this group, as they've all just sort of tripped up over each other a little bit, and you can see that gap as Mabbott gets a disqualification for speeding in the pit lane. Might have been sent down there with the assistance of someone else. Very, very sad there to see that DQ appearing. Got to say though, this group, look at that gap between Zabdir and Lutkovsky. What was it, 3 seconds? Already, before even the pit lane sequence, Zabdir has closed that because this train has been tripping over each other, which then the largest gap really does come in 15th position between Cosette and Pfeiffer. So this is a 15-car train for the race lead, running into our first pit stop in roughly 2 laps time.
Yeah, this just shows you, doesn't matter where you start. Zabdir from the back getting up there, Debee getting quite a few positions already as well. So this is working out pretty well for those guys getting towards the front, but they just need to keep it in line. I mean, Shimmy here, he was leading for quite a while, now down in 8th place. It's so easy to lose or gain positions here. You just got to put yourself in the right place at the right time. And with the pit stop coming up as well, you need to be making sure you're not getting involved with cars coming into the pit lane. We saw so many different sort of lines and overtakings happening coming towards that pit limiter line. It's going to get a little bit crazy as we're probably only a lap, maybe 2 laps away from the next pit stop.
And look at that train behind. Lapinik gets to the head of that train, ahead of Zabdir, and what happens? It is like that train absolutely yanks on the brakes. The gap is back to a second. This will be very frustrating for Zabdir, for Parvin, for Renner as well. All sat there looking at this. And for Drovosekov, by the way, who's up to 13th spot despite dropping down outside of the top 20. Straight into the pit lane. A few of us are already going. That was Zabdir, Shimmy as well. Hubers also in that group. I think Marcel Heck as well. So some teams, some drivers coming in earlier than the expected sort of halfway point in this race.
Yeah, well, we'll find out, but that might be a lap too soon. We're only going to be able to find out one way, which is getting towards the end of this race. But I'm interested to see sort of why they came in so early, because the guys running towards the front for a lot of the race are still out as well. But yeah, I assume they're going to be coming in this time as we're getting towards the halfway point in this race. Almost 15 minutes to go as they get towards the end of this lap. As Fefe here getting a nice little bit of bump drafting there as they come towards the pit entry, and there's so much variance with everyone slowing down as well. Got to be careful not to run into anyone or cause any issues.
I think that might be speeding in the pit lane. I believe that might have been Angel Manuel that might have been speeding in the pit lane as we're 4 wide on pit lane, but once we get into the actual pit lane sequence, there is no contact in the lane. As I believe Rokas to be and Philip Bertram as well. They're not in the pit lane yet, but they are on the back stretch. So they are going an extra lap, same as what Drovosekov did in the previous race. Interesting that Drovosekov, by the way, pitted on that first call down into pit lane a lap earlier as Simon Huber, speeding in the pit lane from that lead group.
Yeah, that's not good for him. Interesting that he got a drive through when other people got a DQ. So I guess if people get a DQ, we're just coming in way too fast when he was only just probably a few Ks over, unfortunately. And that is going to take him out of this group. And he was fighting for a nice position as well. But once all these pit stops happen, the gaps, as you see, are going to be just spread out that little bit, because a second on the pit lane translates to a huge amount of space on the actual track at full speed.
Yeah, it's why you need to absolutely nail the pit lane entry. Thankfully, they don't have to stay below the yellow line on the pit exit, which can cause its own issues, but it does mean they don't have to run all the way around there, which does make things a little bit easier for their pit lane exit. Here's Lutkovsky again, who did gain a lot, we will remind you, in the previous race. Florian Kramer speeding in the pit lane, Cosette speeding in the pit lane, Parvin speeding in the pit lane, Balmania speeding in the pit lane, 4. Ding, ding, ding. Oh, what? Oh, as there's contact. I think that might have been Heck, potentially, on the exit of pit lane. How unlucky is that from Cody Nikola Lutkovsky, doing all of the work in that pit lane sequence to try and potentially take the race lead. Suddenly there is a car stationary at T1 and bam.
Yeah, that is going to ruin any sort of race that he was going to have, because even if he continues, he's going to have a lot of damage on that car and is not going to be able to fight for the victory today, which is a bit unfortunate. And that just shows you how unlucky you can be, as we're getting now Heck here battling the car ahead of him of Shimmy once again for a decent position once it all works out. But actually, now I believe everyone ahead of him has now come into the pit lane, and this is the battle for that P4 to be. Has worked his way to the front once again, and as he certainly knows how to do a bit of strategy, as Fuller is not too far behind him as well.
There is the B on the high side. Rokas to B drops down into 4th spot. Might well cost a fair amount here. Might just be able to pick up the coattails of the slipstream, though. It was a really slow pit stop from Philip Bertram, who I do believe has taken 4 tyres within this stop and drops right down the order to 13th spot. Parvin there, another. Rule number 1 of serving a drive-through penalty, buddy. Don't pick up a drive-through penalty when serving a drive-through. I have done that before. I did it at Silverstone. I did it twice on the bounce, and I instantly alt F4'd from the race.
Yeah, I remember Pastor Maldonado did that in F1 as well, and I believe he got the record for the first person to ever do that, which is get a speeding penalty when you're serving a penalty for a speeding penalty, which is quite an annoyance. But to be honest, oval pit entries are so difficult, as you were saying earlier. Cold brakes coming in so hot, and you're just not really used to it. You haven't touched the brake in quite a few minutes. Is Shimmy now trying to get a bit of bump drafting here on Heck, trying to get Fuller there to sort of push just a little bit further down the line, but to be sitting behind these guys. How is he going to work his way to the front? He's done this previously in the last race. He's done this to work his way to the front of this one as well. Well, what's the strategy going to be this time?
He knows he's got a quick car, and also knows he doesn't have to save any fuel. Did pit a lap later than anyone else in this group, so things are good for Rokas to be right now. So I think just wait this out another 10 minutes or so. By the way, a bit of a slight change in topic, going back to penalties and stuff in Formula 1. Do you know who has the fastest penalty in Formula 1? The fastest penalty, the shortest time either in session or in career to gain a penalty.
I do. Sebastian Vettel, 2006 was it?
Six or seven. It was 7 seconds.
Yeah, he just left the pit lane and he got like a €50,000 fine or something straight away.
7 seconds.
Yeah, I do think it was 2006, something telling me. But yeah, he was obviously very young at the time and probably forgot to press the pit limiter.
I think it might have been 7.
He went on to win 4 World Championships, so it's not like he's too bad of a driver.
We'll see. Anyway, Klaus Fowler, though, leading the way at the moment. Heck, Shimmy and the B, our top little group. I don't really want to trigger anyone, by the way, who's watching. I do like Sebastian Vettel. Latkovsky, you've got to feel bad for Latkovsky there. That is unbelievably rough. Considering that's a 3-second margin, I don't know who it was. I think it might have been Oriol Bolmania. I'm trying to think of the other cars that are in the 44. Drovosekov, who is out of the race, is another one that was in one of those. Not 100% sure as to which one it was.
It might have been Drovosekov, actually looking where he was in the position at the time. But so heartbreaking to do that because he's going to have a slow car as well. You see the damage on the front end. He's probably going to be just losing. Yeah, actually, looking at it, but he's getting a huge push from the car behind. So maybe not so, but surely he's got to have a bit of damage at least. That is going to be enough to catch up those couple of seconds because the cars ahead are looking pretty good. So it's been a nice pack. They're not really losing time at the moment.
Also, car behind, Boris Slivic, our retirement basically from lap 1 of the previous race. So doing a lot better in this one and rising back up inside the top 10 where obviously that reverse grid is going to happen, and hopefully on the start in race 3, if he can finish in 6th spot wherever, hopefully we'll bounce back and actually not start in the same way they did in race 1. Also, regardless as to the damage on the front end of Cody Nikola Latkovsky, this car's very fast and it is closing that gap. It was 3 seconds, now down to 1.9.
And keeping yourself in a good position is very important because we'll once again get the reverse for the 3rd race as well. So keeping inside that top 10 is very important indeed. So keeping this position and not fighting too hard, but they are actually catching. So they might actually be able to fight for the positions ahead as they're swapping around once again. They're now down under 2 seconds behind. So this bump drafting, push drafting tactic is certainly working.
It does seem to be, at least for now. But the thing is with bump drafting, there is an inherent risk of basically what you're doing is you're giving no gap to the car ahead. So you're constantly tapping. If you tap at the wrong point, it's so easy. It's honestly millimetres between, yep, we're doing great, to, yep, we're both in the wall. Fantastic. At the moment, though, pushing very, very nicely indeed. With 7 minutes and 40 seconds left in this race, there is Fowler going for the move around the outside of Rokas to B, but there is no assistance on the rear end from Shimmy. Does mean it's going to drop down into 4th spot, potentially just allow those two. There is Latkovsky and there is Slivic as well. I believe it might be Balmania who they're coming round to lap as well in this group, as having Florian Kramer, who is the 5th car in line, a lap down on the group.
Yeah, it's getting so close as we're getting towards the final laps of the race. Final 7 minutes. This is where we saw everyone last race getting a bit crazy, trying to fight towards the front to get these positions. I seem to be there, getting up the inside there on the tri-oval, on below the apron even, but having to fall back in actually as we're getting a car. I think that's Kramer then trying to get involved with this battle as well. We've seen how that can affect the racing quite a lot when these back markers get him to be once again below the apron and getting very tight as these guys trying to fight for every last centimetres. Is getting to that crunch time to be now to the inside with a huge run. Can he get it up the inside into P3? I think just about. He's actually going to be squeezed out there once again.
Yeah, that side-by-side contact, it slows the pair of you down, but if you do it in the right way, a lot of these drivers do know how to kind of make the contact to slow each other down, down to the contact model. But that just puts Rokas to be down to the rear end of the straight, back to the high side, might well get squeezed out by Shimmy here. That trio, by the way, of backmarkers, they are all battling for position as well as Rokas to be now trying to sort of give some of it out to Shimmy, maybe making a little bit of contact. Back in line, fourth car in this train. The three behind is Kramer, Montoro and Bolmania, who battle it out down to the 16th position. I was about to talk about Anibal dos Santos, but never mind. Disqualified, and I'm pretty sure that was from inside the top 10.
Yeah, just another one. Oh, is that to be getting sent to the inside? But it's so difficult with the cars behind them. Actually, they're trying to battle for their own positions, and they're going to be getting involved with this as well, because DeBee could be in a bit of a difficult situation where he's almost defending from a car he's not actually fighting. But now coming towards the final 5 minutes of the race, DeBee is needing to get past 3 cars to get another race victory, and it's certainly starting to heat up.
That is Latkovsky. That damaged car is Latkovsky, who has rejoined this lead train despite the drama of the exit of the pit lane. Latkovsky is back in with the assistance of Boris Slivic, who I believe is still sat directly onto the rear end of the number 16 of Latkovsky. Marcel Heck leading the way at the moment from Fowler and Shimmy, the trio of Germans at the front. Rokas to be once again has the gap to go to the inside. The little bit of side-by-side contact. Well, you know what they say. If it doesn't work one time, just keep doing it and hope for the best. Is that a saying? Because that's what Rokas to be is going on right now.
Yeah, some people say if you keep trying the same thing again, that's obviously the most smart thing to do if it doesn't work out. But certainly with over racing, that is the thing to do, because you might just get those extra kilometre an hour of a run that might get you alongside enough to actually make the move. But what he needs to do maybe is just sit back, a few, maybe half car length further to get a bit of a run, so you've got an overspeed by the time you get there. But I think he's playing his cards quite well at the moment, keeping it safe. But the car behind of Kramer is going to be obviously in his mirrors, as once again going to the inside of turn 3. He needs to sort of get a bit of slipstream from someone, because once again he's going to have to pull back in.
Philip Bertram, after a slow pit stop, gets a drive-through penalty after returning to the pit lane. What was going quite well for Philip Bertram through this race. Not so much anymore, unfortunately. So way down the order, 23rd spot, and getting an extra drive-through penalty as well. There is Mike Bartman, our top qualifier when it came to the pre-qualifying to get into this event, just on the rear end of Dirk Pfeiffer, doing his best job to push. No?
Yeah, try. Oh, okay. So I just seen what livery there, and that was a very good one. I didn't pick up what you were putting down, unfortunately, for this one. But yeah, the best push from the 2 best cars with only 3 minutes to go. They've got quite a big gap in front of them, actually, so they're probably not going to be doing that. But what they can do is hold on from Zebdir behind them and really put themselves in a good position for the start of race 3, as they're going to be keeping themselves out of trouble for the last 3 minutes. But not keeping themselves out of trouble is, look at this pack coming towards the lines, about 7-8 cars there, all trying to fight for their positions, as it looks like it's going to be actually Heck who's leading the way from Fowler, as we're getting a bit of a run there on the outside, pulling Rokas to be round.
That is Yann Courtois just ahead of Rokas to be assisting. Obviously, Yann Courtois is battling it out with Florian Kramer just on the rear of the train, and Rokas to be nearly cleared to grab 3rd position, at least get himself really secure within that lead group. But Kramer does pick the position up on Yann Courtois. Rokas to be has to settle for 4th position at the moment. 2 minutes and 20 seconds left on the timesheets, potentially aiming for around 3 laps left to go. We know Rokas to be has an exceptionally fast car based on how things have unfolded throughout the early course and the race. First race of the evening. Heck, though, leading from Fowler, Shimmy and DeBee, the order that it has been in for quite a while, but not really the plan that Rokas to be has had. He definitely prefers being the 2nd car in line right now, or potentially, based on how it was in the previous race, wants to be that leader.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 3 laps to go, including this one as well. So running out of opportunities. And Heck is holding on for now, getting a bit of a push. But DeBee now, a bit of a better run this time on the inside. Can he get it? No, he can't quite. Once again, it's Kramer coming round the outside. And DeBee maybe could use one of these cars really to pull him. Because the issue is once he pulls out the slipstream, because he's quite a few cars back, he then obviously loses that run, loses the effect, and has to pull back in once again. So he needs to be trying to find a way past once again, maybe a different point of the track through the tri-oval, but no, he's still having to sit back there in the train.
2 laps left to go. Heck still leading. Like you say, every opportunity that Rokas DeBee gets, it's almost always on that back stretch, but it's always going down low, which might seem like a great idea, but I just don't think that the timing of the run from DeBee is particularly ace at the moment. We're right on board. Look at that. It's just a wall of air and no assistant to do so. You've got to time that run better, potentially leave a bigger gap to work into on that back stretch. Don't have long to figure this one out. By the way, Letkovsky and Slivic, despite being fantastic up with this train, have dropped back and now battling it out with Pfeiffer and Bartman as Slivic drops down into 8th spot. Here's Rokas DeBee coming out of NASCAR 4, looking to the inside, going into the tri-oval. There's the contact as well, looking back to the outside as Fowler is going to drop back a position, potentially to shimmy the assistance from Rokas DeBee to push the German on the high side to try and make this outside line work, to try and grab 3rd position at the moment. There's contact and brushing between the two as they run through NASCAR 1 and 2.
10 seconds left on the clock, final lap time, 3 corners to go now, and this is looking a bit difficult for DeBee once again. Actually, is he going to be able to get a run 3 wide coming towards turn 3 for the final time? Who's going to be coming out on top? Only 2 corners to go. DeBee round the outside takes the lead. Fowler coming into 2nd place, and somehow DeBee has worked his way to the front once again, but is Fowler going to get him to the line?
Timing is absolutely everything, and we just saw it there. Fowler and shimmy behind Heck in that 4th position now, drops all the way to the rear end of this train. But look at Klaus Fowler potentially with the run going into the tri-oval. It's going to be DeBee again, back to back here at Daytona. 1 race coming up. You'll have to slap him back down to 10th spot and see how he unfolds from this. Excellent stuff from Rokas DeBee, proving that timing was everything, and potentially even with a little bit of assistance from a back marker as well.
Yeah, Shimmy and Heck just lost a lot of speed there, coming through 3 and 4 on that final lap. I don't know if maybe it was fuel related or just with the slipstream that DeBee did at the right time, used the cars around him, got a bit of a push by maybe Kramer was in the end as well, and that worked out as Huber there coming to the line. He had a drive-through penalty, I believe, at one point. From the speeding in the pit lane, and he's looking to fight for the lead. Dropped down in the end to P14, so he's not even going to be in P10, which is actually Zabdir. So Zabdir looking good in the race earlier, dropped back this race, and now in the 3rd race, he's going to be back at the front.
Yeah, we've got a couple of cars further down the order. Of course, we've got Buffy, Philip Bertram, who we're presently looking at, Drovosekov, all quite good cars. Hopefully we'll see Dreher back in the race as well. We do expect to see him returning to the racetrack. Potentially Lapinick as well, as much as, yes, that race was not ideal for Lapinick, but potentially there might well be a bit more pace in that car if the issues are sorted out. Your finishing order, though, Rokas DeBee, as expected, taking yet another win, by the way. Fantastic stuff. Fowler, then Shimmy, Heck, and Bartman, your top 5. Pfeiffer, Latkovsky, Slivic, Manuel, and Zabdir are your top 10 that will be flipped around as the rest of your runners and finishers come through. Plenty of questions to be answered from that race, but yet another. If there was one thing that we weren't going to be robbed of this evening, it was entertainment, and we have had plenty of it so far.
Yeah, this is absolutely crazy. And I'm surprised he's managed to work his way to the front once again, because it's certainly difficult to do so once, but let alone 2 races. Can he do it for the 3rd race in a row with all the the variants and any sort of random things that can happen in over racing? Getting yourself to the front is difficult indeed, and this is going to be quite a challenge, as once again he's going to have to come from 10th on the grid and see what he can do. The pit stop was so important, and this race he actually got it right. So can he do it again?
Potentially. I mean, to be fair, based on the pace, the car looked quick in clean air. I think that's the critical thing. Which, obviously you kind of think you're punching a hole for everyone else, but it's working for Rokas to be, and that timing is critical. It took a while to get that race lead, but did it on the last lap. So you only need to lead one.
You do, and that is the all-important one, getting it to the line. And he managed to time that to perfection and really getting himself in the best place to get that run around the outside of turn 3, and just being quite smart in general during the race as well. But we're going to get the rolling start for the 3rd time, and let's see how this one works out. The drivers have learnt quite a lot over the last hour of racing. What can they do in this 3rd and final race of the evening?
Yet another half hour ahead of us then, as we'll get ourselves ready. Not necessarily sure if that was the grid that we were there. Is Zabdir, who I think might not be starting on the grid, is in the pit lane. That's why the grid wasn't particularly right. Zabdir, our pole sitter, is not on the starting grid for this race, our final one here at Daytona Beach, which means the lead is then held by Manuel, by Slivic as well, who is definitely in a quick car. Does actually get this one started nicely, does Boris Slivic, although potentially might have been a little bit scared whilst getting underway in a really, really good position. Latkovsky, could it be 3rd time's the charm for them? Trying to grab the race lead early doors, but goes back down into 3rd spot as Slivic now attacks on the high side. Watch out for Heck on that low side. Robbed at the final moments of the race as the overspeed straight into the rear end of Manuel with enormous speed.
That was a huge overspeed. You definitely don't want to be at the front, actually, looking as it stands 3 wide, coming in towards turn number 3. You've got Shimmy just behind them. Fuller is involved as well to be just behind these guys, still continuing 2-3 wide around turn 3 and 4. Very tight racing indeed, but just the slipstream there coming out to turn 2. You can see, big contact. Is he going to be able to hold it? I think that's Manuel able to hold it, but Heck has got a huge lead coming to start lap 2.
Won't last, will not last. That lead will go. A little bit of a poor sort of run there as well from Slivic, who was on the high side. There's contact on the low side as well. That'll be Gomizia, who was just running sort of below the double yellow line, potentially going into turn 1. Might have actually been between as well. Klaus Fuller and Rokas De Bie, who are battling it out a little bit on that run into turn 1. De Bie already up into 6th position. Heck leading the race. Latkovsky just sat behind. Then Shimmy. I mean, Heck and Shimmy, where were they running in the previous race? Yep, they were running right up there 1st and 2nd, or as 1st and 3rd for quite a lot of the final portion of the previous race. Renner as well behind. Kramer, who was sort of rocked a little bit earlier on in the race.
He's made up a lot of positions on that first
very early.
Able to get through quite a lot of these cars as they're going wiggling side by side. As someone just behind them is Renner, maybe getting a bit of a wiggle on, losing some time as De Bie's going to get past him up the inside into turn number 1 and already up into 5th place. Yeah,
it's Jan Courtois who's on the high side there, just trying to grab the position potentially from Renner. Renner, though, drops the position to Rokas De Bie and came up a little bit on the exit of the 2nd corner. Rokas De Bie, P number 5 at present, and I think, to be fair, considering it took Rokas De Bie a little bit longer to get up inside the top 5 in the previous race, I think we'll be particularly happy with how this race has unfolded so far, with just 2.5 minutes completed already. I was saying that. Is that him down on the low side? Is that him dropping the positions?
I think it's Fuller. I think Fuller is falling some positions.
And he counter's coming down to the pit lane. That's why he's got disqualified.
Oh, no. That is such a shame. He was in a decent position and just getting shimmied out of the way a little bit. Unfortunately, as you say, getting disqualified for going over that pit entry line, which is obviously not intentional looking at it, but that is how it goes sometimes. And he is unfortunately out of this race and out of the racing for the evening as well. As we're back to the front, Marcel Heck leading the way as we get
Jan Courtois.
Contact with Courtois. And he's actually, it's crazy that he's all got to the front. He's been towards the back a little bit for some of these races, but now pushing to be towards the front.
Yeah, Courtois, though, making the, I mean, I said maybe not too much oval experience from quite a lot of these drivers. Do not bump draft in the corners, though. Like, that is super speedway, almost rule number 1. Yeah, you might have seen it in the 500 at the weekend, courtesy of the next generation package in NASCAR, unless you're Brad Keselowski, which point you've been pushing everyone around anyway. sometimes they can push in the corners. In this, do not push in the corners. Only really push on that back stretch and potentially on the short sprints between the tri-ovals and the primary corners of the racetrack. Those are the only ones that you can really push on, i.e. the straight bits. Push on those, not in the corners.
Oh, we got a return of the best slipstream in the house.
Nice. See, you're onto it now.
Yeah, I'm onto it. All over it. I'm all over it. Bartman is pushing his way towards the front with Pfeffer just in front of him. And Manuel, who started all the way at the front, now dropped down to that 12th place, courtesy of a pretty poor start, and then just getting absolutely romped with the slipstream coming out to turn 2. And it looks like this bump drafting could work with a bit of side-by-side action into turn 1, although actually looks like they just pulled out of that. So behind them, Zetek is looking to come past as well.
Yeah, I think so. Zabdir did, I believe, start from the pit lane, currently running in 25th position in a bit of a solo drive as Bartman. The slipstreaming at its best ended pretty poorly on the exit of turn 2 as straight up into the barrier Mike Bartman, and that is a pretty damaged front end on that Camaro. I don't think that one will be getting up to 300k once again.
Yeah, that's not going to be the best aero that he could have done. So, yeah. Okay, cool. So looking back...
We'll hammer that one into the ground, shall we?
Looking back at the front, it's still Heck leading the way with Lakowski just behind him. And it looks like they formed a pretty nice pack here at the front. And they're doing a pretty good job at the moment, looking fairly comfortable as it stands. But you just know, when the time is right, some of these guys are going to be pushing their way forward. But I believe at the top 9 or so in this leading pack.
Yeah, it's a fair train, although to be fair, Fenn, who's in 10th position, isn't particularly too far off the rear end. The flashing of the lights there from Latkovsky is more to tell. Typically, we say it's normally get out of my way. We don't have lights normally in NASCAR racing as well, so it's a new one, I'm sure, for this racetrack going around on the oval. In this, it's more, I'm not going to pass you. Sit on the yellow line, I'll bump you. We're going to push, we're going to work together, and we're going to try and just hang on to the lead, at least for now. This grouping, though, this is costing them an awful lot of time.
Yes, certainly is, and this is why the gaps can spread out fairly quickly. If you start battling, sort of messing around, not just sitting in a nice line, you obviously just slow yourselves down, and then getting that time back is so difficult. Apart from if you see a big slipstream train, as you're getting a bit of a quad pack there, going side by side through turn number 2 onto the back straight.
Oh my! And
we get a little bit of contact, but then you see the slipstream, the 88 car there coming down the inside, getting so close. And Zetek there on the inside, going to be making up about 3-4 positions.
Yeah, that was very much classic Dega style there, with how they were pushing each other in basically 3 little packs of 2s. On the back stretch. Andre Zetek, though, nearly got himself to the head of this field, of this grouping, rather. Unfortunately, was not able to do so. It is the yellow and black car of Dirk Pfeiffer at the head of it. Bertram behind, then Zetek, then Mabbott, then Fenn, then Moyne as well, just on the rear end of this grouping, as we've got 3 of the green cars. They're still not in turn 3, they're in turn 2. It's not as fun saying it that way, is it?
Yes, certainly. Certainly not, but just look at this pack once again, getting a bit of a run there on the outside as Pfeffer getting a push from Bertram round the outside, and now we're getting Zetek come past as well. This who's that in the middle? Gomicia getting a bit of a losing battle here because he's lost. The cars going past him are just absolutely flying away from him as we get the 3 green cars. We've got Labette there getting past. Is he going to be able to get past the inside? Yes, he is. And Zetek is losing another couple of positions.
Yeah, I think so. The reason why, by the way, we're not focused on the lead group, they are all very calm at the moment. They're all just sat in a nice little line. This one, not so much a nice little line, as it was Moyne who was pushed sort of a bit below the double yellow going through T1. There is the contact as we ride on board with Gomitzia, looking backwards to Mabbott, looking backwards to Zetek as well. Pit window just opened as we cross over the 22-minute mark to go, but of course we're not expecting those pit lane entries to happen for at least another sort of 6 or 7 minutes. Gomitzia is receiving a little bit of a nice little bump here from Lee Mabbott, who was running in a decent spot earlier on in race 2. Unfortunately, I think was one of the cars that was sent down into the pit lane and received a DQ courtesy of it, as we'll return up towards our head group. Heck, Latkovsky, then Shimmy, then Kramer, then DeBee, then Courtois, who is still within that lead group, although sitting a fair way off of the Flying Dutchman in 5th spot.
And these guys they've sort of learned over the last hour and a bit of racing what they need to do, but they're still going for every single gap they can, and get a drive-through penalty there for Balmania, and unfortunately he's going to be losing some time for that. It's not the longest pit lane in the world as such, but you lose so much track position just because of how fast the cars are going past the pit lane. You really lose, relatively speaking, a lot more than you would like. So unfortunately, that is going to be dropping him out of the top positions for this race. But heck, leading the way for quite a while now. Is fuel going to be a concern? We did see some guys pitting a lap early than maybe they would have wanted to in the last race.
I will say, typically the pit lane speed limit here is, I think it's normally 55 miles an hour, which is 97 kilometers an hour. There we go, boom, got there in the end. And here it's 60 kilometers an hour, which when you compare it to the 300 kilometer race speed, or really it's sort of like a 295 average around this circuit, that is an enormous percentage of difference. That's why it's so painful to come into pit lane around here. And then when you account, obviously, for a drive-through penalty, less so, but when you account for actually coming in and stopping, fuel and tyres and stuff, you typically do lose basically a lap around here.
Yeah, which is always a good one if there's green flag pit stops and people stay out, and you literally come back in almost fighting with the same people.
Group.
Yeah, the same people that you were. But most people obviously put in the same lap or one lap after each other, so they don't ever get into that situation. As Lukovsky there getting a nice little push on Heck towards the front of this train, and looking very nicely in this position at the moment. They're just holding position for now, saving that bit of fuel and waiting for the chaos to unfold when we get towards the pit stop.
Well, Marcel Heck is still leading, like you say, drinking that fuel potentially. We saw those issues coming in and potentially in the first race from Zabdir. Whether that will be going the way of Heck as well, we'll have to wait and see. Gomizia, who is running in 11th spot. There is no need to be inside the top 10 anymore when it comes to reverse grids. This is the last race that we're doing today. This is all about winning. It is all or nothing. We have 10 cars for the race leaders. Pfeiffer and Bertram have pushed their way back into that lead group. But by the way, great stuff from Bertram. He had a good car and definitely showing it here. Mabbott, though, trying to push. Zetek, again, trying to push Gomizia to close in on that lead group. Whether Gomizia is the fastest of this trio, the problem is that to switch and to get one in the head is going to cost you time in doing so, and so they don't typically like to do it because it's a risk.
Yeah, certainly a difficult situation to be in, because you want to obviously go as fast as possible, then you lose time doing that. So it's obviously the way up of what is the better option, and sometimes it can be a little bit difficult. I wonder their head going a bit wide. I wonder if he actually wants to be overtaken a little bit here. 3 minutes to go to the pit lane, to the pit stop. Is he going to be making it to there, or do you think he's thinking he's running a bit low on fuel? We'll have to find out indeed, but it's a bit difficult to sort of let someone through without letting quite a lot of cars through.
Yeah, you can't like pop on the indicators and be like, I'm going this way or you go that way. We don't do that here, so it's kind of, like I say, it's a bit hard. It's not as if you can go and tell your spotter to go and tell their spotter, as you would do in NASCAR, hey, we've been leading a lot of this, we've been drinking the fuel, it's your turn to start footing the bill for this group as well, because our invoice is growing and it's your turn. You can't do any of that. You've just got to get out there and race, especially with it being half hour. Really, really high there from Florian Kramer. That's opened the door for Rokas to grab fourth position going into turn one. Not necessarily sure what happened there to Florian Kramer, but Rokas will be like, okay, thanks. I won from this position in the previous race, don't you remember? Oh, and look who's ahead of me. It's Jimmy and it's Heck. Oh, these are the people that I beat.
And just look how he's sort of catching up that gap that Kramer left as well, with the slipstream ahead, just going to be getting right up to the back of Shimmy once again and really getting towards the front of this pack. And can he make it 3 in a row? The pit stops, as we said before, just so important with the variance that you can have. You can easily lose, sort of 5 seconds at the extremes, either gain or lose, compared to people around you as well. So certainly the important part, which you got right, sitting in this 4th place, saving a bit of fuel. I think he's probably going to be able to do a lap longer like he did last time.
I think, by the way, we might have had a pitter already coming down. I think Zetek might have been into the pit lane already through this race, which in my opinion is crazy early. Actually, he's not. He's still on the racetrack. I think there might just be a bit of damage on his car, so I'm not necessarily sure. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll
no, he's in the pit lane.
Find out.
I'll figure it out eventually.
That is
the pit lane.
There's a little bit early. 16 minutes to go. So when we come around next time, we're going to be just shy of 15 minutes. So we might see some hitters already at the end of this lap, as we are on lap 18 there. Heck still leading the way. Surely he's going to be in, being one of the first ones to pit, leading for so long. But then it's all about the cars behind. What are they going to do? But then also you don't want to pit on your own, as we said. Getting back up to speed, being in the slipstream is so important as well. So this is quite a crucial time of the race, as this lead pack has started to sort of fragment into some little separate battles.
Yeah, like you say, it depends on where you're working together. Like I said, if you start tripping over each other, that's where the issues come. 15 minutes, 20 seconds left. Now, we know that this is a critical pit lap for some of these. Whether it will be for the likes of Rokas to be, who I think might want to stay out for a little bit longer as Florian Kramer comes down onto the pit lane with Heck as well. I think Jan Courtois might be down with, well, I actually think he might have stayed out within that group. 3, though, do hold on to the race lead. It is Latkovsky, Shimmy, and Rokas to be, who's trying to grab second position off of the German. Going to the high side. Well, how many times did he try this in the previous race to grab second position in the early running? Close to contact once again on the exit of 2, potentially with the overspeed, carrying that all the way around the outside. And we know this car is quick when he wants it to be. Rokas to be straight up to the race lead at the moment, and Latkovsky drops down to 3rd as Shimmy gets through as well.
That car's so fast. I know he got a bit of a run, a bit of a slipstream as well, but he's just managing to pull away from some of these cars that run around the outside. You're effectively doing more meters, but he's still able to sort it out. And now braking. Oh, bit of contact actually coming towards the pit entry line. Don't go for a speeding penalty, as Mabet is getting one for him. Drive-through penalty, he'll be coming back in.
Rokas to be might have slowed down quite a bit on pit lane entry there, as Latkovsky also made that pass on the pit lane entry. There is Zetek, who is one of the cars that has completed that full pit lane sequence. Heck, Huber, De Santos as well. Of course, the green check. I mean, I normally explain it, but I haven't done throughout this broadcast because it's pretty obvious. It kind of, as soon as you've completed your pit lane sequence, you get a green check next to your name, which says that, yep, you've come in, you've changed at least 2 tyres, you've filled up with a little bit of fuel, get back out on that racetrack and go and win us this one, son, yeah?
Yeah, passed the requirements for the race, and it looks like we're seeing some guys going a little bit longer than we saw before, which is quite an interesting one. But pretty much everyone's going to be coming in now because they will need to, due to the fuel situation that we've got. As Heck here, he's got a Kramer just behind him, sort of pushing him all the way along, with a Huber not too far behind. But once again, we won't really know how this works out until we see everyone come through the pit stop this time.
Yeah, this is actually really, really good for Heck and for Kramer, who, despite coming into pit lane maybe a lap and everyone else, they came out together, meaning they get to push each other. Rokas to be did get a speeding in the pit lane. I did think he was in a little bit too quick, and he had to slow down even more to potentially get under that limit. But Liam Abbott gets another drive-through penalty for speeding. Rokas to be, though, not going to get the triple here at Daytona, with a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That is tragic.
And just look at the time he's lost as well. So he's out of that slipstream and not going to be fighting as well. Oh, it's a spin there. Heck, can he catch it through the bus stop, through the advertising signs, getting it back on? Good save. But he has now lost that lead battle, and he is going to be having a bit of a sweaty eyebrow then, maybe a bit more.
I think might need to come back into pit lane to do the old change of overalls and such. Rokas to be straight back into pit lane to do his change of overalls. And by change of overalls, I mean, come in and serve a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Straight down to 60 kilometres an hour. The thing is, was that risk really needed? We know he's got a really fast car.
Yeah, he's obviously pushing the limits, and he definitely broke later than the other guys in terms of when we saw the brake lights come on, but that doesn't mean everything, because you're not going to be slamming fully on the brakes anyway. But yeah, 60 k's an hour there, you can see he obviously went a bit over that, and do not get another one, which I don't believe he has. So he is going to be going. But down in P20, as you say, Lewis, he's not going to be getting the triple, which is such a shame because he's been so fast and so consistent. It's now Lakovsky leading the way.
Yeah, Lakovsky from Kramer from Shimmy. Now, great little trio. Obviously, it would have been Marcel Heck. Marcel Heck has found, almost instantly, by the way, a little partner to do with in the form of Andre Renner. Who, as a driver, I wasn't expecting up to be up in the inside the top 5, but either way, is sat in 5th position now as Marcel Heck has grabbed that one, but also has Huber, also has Moyne, also, well, DeSantis is a little bit too far back, never mind, ignore that, but those 4 are quite close in that train. It's a bit further back. There's 5.3 seconds. If you work together, 10 minutes, might be able to drag that group down.
Might be, but going to be certainly difficult indeed. So it's looking like this battle towards the front is pretty nice indeed, and they just need to sort of work themselves out what they want to do now. They've seen what DeBee did last time, and is that going to work again? We'll have to find out. Just a 3-car pack at the front this time. So yeah, let's sort of find out how these guys are going to come around this with 10 minutes to go.
6.4 seconds now is that group. I think that one is pretty much set sail for the race victory unless something happens between our top 3. I think Heck is out. I think Huber, I think Renner, I think Moyne, they're all out of it. This is the battle for the 3rd train between DeSantis, Slivic, Fenn and Manuel. And like I said, had a really terrible opening couple of laps to this race, but seems to find form as the race goes on, as things get a little bit comfortable. We'll try picking these ones apart. We've got 2 target cars and 2 3 cars. Very confusing.
Yeah, very confusing indeed. These guys are starting to get a bit of side-by-side action coming through the final corner. And we're going to be getting, I wanted to get a bit of side-by-side action there with 2 greens on the left, 2 reds on the right. But they're going to be coming through now the tri-oval, getting side-by-side once again. And is this going to be coming out rather nicely for, I think, DeSantis there coming around the outside. Is he going to be able to then pull in? Not quite able to, as he's going to have to bounce off him. Once again, Fenn holding on there in that 9th position. But actually, I think DeSantis may manage to get there just in the end.
This is why I like oval racing, by the way, is look at this train coming through. Those 2 are absolutely flying. Who even is that? I think that might be Pfeiffer and Bertram, who have come from absolutely nowhere to just go, oh, you were battling for the top 10, were you? See you, mate. Don't worry about that. We've got this one covered.
I love how you can just steam past people when they just pull away. It's quite crazy, the science and the aerodynamics that goes on around here. But when you're going 300 k's an hour, the air movement is quite significant because of the mathematics of dragging all that squaring, getting very important as you get to the higher speeds.
Just got to say, by the way, the lap times that those 2 are setting, Bertram and Pfeiffer, they both just set the fast lap of the race. I don't think anyone's really surprised. It was, though, half a second faster than basically anyone else on the track. Half a second.
Yeah.
Around Daytona. They're going to grab that. They're going for 4th, and that is not a joke.
You got to love a slipstream.
Love it.
A bit of bump drafting, because also the thing is, when you're literally touching the car ahead, you're effectively pushing the car, so you effectively have more power, and then the air is literally going over both cars, like you become connected rather than there being a sort of drag bubble in the middle of the 2 cars, if you get what I'm saying. So it's very very
I'm
cool.
picking up what you put down.
Yeah, as Z-Tech gets a drive through there. So it's an awesome. So you actually saw us back in the 500 last week when you had the 2 trains. As soon as one train would close up and all the cars would go bump to bump to bumper with no gaps in between, you went faster because you were literally pushing everyone along in one long sort of device as such, whereas when it starts spreading out, the air goes in between the cars and gets all draggy. It's quite a nerdy subject, and I'm not even a master in that, but it's quite a cool fact to do.
An aerodynamicist.
Yeah, I'm definitely not.
Yeah, that's a big word. I'm definitely not. No, the air in oval racing, yeah, maybe less so in this, courtesy of being GT3s and stuff, but air in oval racing is an absolutely fascinating topic because, by the way, Marcel Heck has just had an issue on the tri-oval and is very much out of the race, as these 2 have grabbed 6th position now. So clearly there was a big issue in that mid-pack. Not necessarily sure as to what's happened, but these two won't care one bit as they continue to set just absolute dynamite lap times as they will go and grab themselves. There's 5th place. See you in a bit, mate.
Oh my lord. Just absolutely freight trading these guys. It's awesome to see. And that is obviously the best way of getting towards the front. So this is looking really good for these guys. And they, as you say, are going to be potentially fighting for this good position, because I think
they're definitely
it is a bit
fourth.
too far now. Yeah,
they're definitely getting fourth. Because the speed... Oh, Moy with the drive-through penalty. Did see another one being pinged as well, just a little bit earlier on in this race. That one from Zetek, the one that I'm alluding to a little bit earlier. So there's another one to dish out. Obviously, we had quite a few. It's the expectation is that we're going to get a load of drive-through penalties. There is this duo up into 4th and 5th spot, and very well deserved. They have been bump drafting better than anyone else, working in such a great contingent. It's why they are so fast. It shows how much faster they can realistically go if you have two at the front of the train that just work together. 14.3 seconds in 5 minutes though at Daytona. I'd love to see it. I don't think we will.
Well, if they strap a few turbos on, they might be able to. But yeah, just as it is going to be quite difficult indeed, because as you say, half a second a lap, which means they're going to need 28 seconds. 28 laps, I mean, which is obviously not going to be too possible indeed, as we're into the final 5 minutes of the evening, and Lekowski leading the way from Kramer and Shimmy as well, with a car just behind him, which may be a bit after his penalties that he's had. And we're now going to see how Kramer is going to be trying to get past. We were mentioning earlier, he's not really been at the front for a lot of these races, sort of dropping back, having a couple of issues here and there, but now fighting for the lead. Needs to work out how he's going to be able to get past.
Well, we're definitely going to see a different winner in this race, unless Rokas to be decides to mount a quite interesting comeback from 17th and not far off a lap down in this race. I think we're definitely going to see someone new. It's just who it's going to be. Shimmy to the inside looks there, but there was no overlap, and Florian Kramer. I do like this, by the way, in oval racing. I mean, it's not necessarily a rule. It's just how oval racing is any overlap's an overlap, and there's none of this. This is my corner rubbish. I'm going to push you straight off. Am I there? Is there a physical overlap with your car? If there's yes, you're welcome to come across, but you will crash. So it's entirely up to you. That's why I like oval racing, because it's just kind of like you have to respect that there are other people around, which I know is obviously hilarious when you say that with NASCAR. By respect, you have to accept that someone else is there. You just don't have to respect that they actually exist.
Yeah, but for how close they race, I would say there aren't actually that many accidents as such. I mean, maybe sort of 4 or 5 in a 500 isn't really that much when you actually think about the amount of times and how close they are literally sitting bumper to bumper to bumper. It's only when you get sort of in the really awkward situations that it can happen. So, yeah, but as you say, no rules as such in that regard. But these guys getting very close indeed now. They are sort of pushing each other to the front. And this is really what Shimmy needs to do. He needs to use Kramer, sort of push him past and then get a bit of a run himself to do a double overtake.
Or back off a little bit. Back off to the form of 2, maybe 3 car lengths. And then push into that slipstream, carry the momentum, and then try and then make your move. The problem is by the time he's closing in on Kramer, Shimmy's already basically exhausted all of that kind of slipstream, which isn't really much to work into. And so the advantage going into the corner or onto the backstretch just isn't that much. It's only maybe 1, maybe 2k. As soon as you pull out into what is a brick wall of air, by the way, the amount of air these cars are moving out at these speeds is enormous. This time, though, into the tri-oval might well make this one stick. A little bit of contact between the two. It's Latkowski trying to give the slipstream, though, to Kramer. Understands the threat of Shimmy behind and decides that he wants the purple and white KW car directly behind.
That was it looks like Shimmy just lifted off because Kramer, side by side, then Kramer got in that slipstream Lukovsky and it just pulled him, because there's a reason why it's called tow, because it literally is like a pulling effect effectively is how it's working, and that is you certainly could see there. But he's backed off a little bit now as Kramer. Is he going to be able to try and get a bit of a run, although he's just had a bit of a nudge? He's going to lose a bit of stability there coming through the corner. He has got a run. Going to be going 3 wide as we come towards 2 laps to go here in Daytona here this evening after 3 races. Who's going to come out on top on this final one? Side by side, they've caught it, and Kramer getting through to 2nd place.
I was going to say that was brilliantly held from Shimmy, and the idea there to get to the inside, that was not very good in defence from Florian Kramer. Of course, you're battling it out as hard as you can, but that was not a good move. Now it's going to open the door in Latkovsky by basically just pushing his nose down the inside. There is 2 laps to go, and if there is one thing that we know about Daytona and races like this, the moment that white flag is out, the moment we head onto the final lap, or maybe the couple laps to go like we are now, that throttle is pressed and it is not released until you see the checkered flag.
Oh, you've got to go for every single inch, because you might only get one more opportunity as you come around to start the final lap of the race. Bit of side-by-side action now. Kramer trying to come around, back around the outside of Shimmy. Bit of contact they had here on the previous lap, but Shimmy's actually getting the slipstream this time. Kramer's going to have to drop him as we head on to the final lap. Latolsky has been leading this for so long now. Can he hold on? 3 more corners to go.
Yeah, the white flag is in the air. The 3 are battling for the race lead. Latkovsky, Shimmy and Kramer. Look at that gap that Shimmy gets to work into, pushing into that slipstream, pushing further, 300 kilometers an hour, not deciding that this was the opportunity he was going for. I think might have even lifted out of that, did Shimmy. Latkovsky's holding on. Is there any opportunity for Kramer to go through? No, the gaps are big enough. This might happen on the run down towards the Tri-Oval. It was 2 race victories from Rokas to be. Who's picking up the 3rd? It looks like it's going to go to the Macedonian of Cody, Nikola Latkovsky, who had disappointment through the day, who has victory in race number 3 at Daytona. Shimmy did not have the car to get to get first, but did have the car at least to grab 2nd from Kramer.
Yeah, good evening of racing from Shimmy as well. The last 2 races really battling there for the lead. Unfortunately missing out on both occasions there, and will not be taking home a victory. But to be, it wasn't his day in the end, falling back a little bit further down than he would have wanted. P15 on your screen here, holding up it's not DeSantis behind him, and that might be a John Rose there as he comes across the line. But to be 15th place, but he got 2 victories, so certainly a good evening of racing. And it was actually Bertram in the end, P4, getting the fastest lap there with a 0.277. But look at Pfeffer behind him, also a 0.277, just showing you how close those drivers got. But in the end, it was Bertram there for that 4th place.
And they both set that on the same lap time. It was that lap when they pushed their way past the top 5. They were basically sat together and they pushed each other around all that group, because they were sat nose to tail across the start-finish line to start the lap. They were sat nose to tail to finish the lap as well. Cam, what a crazy round! What a crazy evening of entertainment! This is why we love doing these random ranked races. The 2.4 hour of Daytona was fantastic, and this was brilliant as well.
Oh, certainly was, and yeah, obviously glad to be here for this evening of racing. Crazy idea, crazy format, got some really great racing in the end, and I'm sure the drivers enjoyed it as much as we did commentating, because it's such a different form of racing to your average road courses and endurance racing that we see as well. There's just a completely different mindset that you have to have, a lot of sort of different respect you have to have for the drivers around you. And in the end, we had 3 different races, and the result was different every time, just showing you how many variables there are in the ovals.
Absolutely. Well, I have very much enjoyed this evening's spectacle. A reminder, by the way, for you yourselves, if you've watched this and thought, hey, this actually looks pretty good, jump yourselves onto RaceRoom, download it in Steam. There is plenty of opportunities for you to go and get involved in the racing. I've been Lewis McGlade, Cam Rogers been alongside me. We'll see you in a few weeks' time. Until then, though, goodbye.